Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Committee on Education and Waterland, Culture and the Arts to come to order. Today is Friday, February 13th, day before Valentine's Day. Don't forget, if you have a loved one, don't forget to get them something. We are meeting in conference room 229. This hearing is being streamed live on YouTube. And if we must end this hearing due to technical issues, the committee will reconvene on Wednesday, February 18th at 1 p.m. in conference room 229. And a public notice will be posted on the Hawaii Legislature's website. And due to the number of people, as you can see, standing outside, waiting to come in here for other issues, and because of the shutdown we had on Monday, we really had to move a lot of the bills. And I'm sorry, UH, you guys were scheduled for Monday, and because of this, we have part of you today and part of you on Wednesday, so please bear with us. And if technical issues arise during the Zoom testimony, the committee may need to proceed to the next testifier, and written testimony is on file and it's much appreciated. And so I want to welcome my chair from Waterland and his committee. Welcome. So the first item is Senate Bill 2613, relating to public school land transfers, revises the tax map key numbers and the conveyance process by which identified properties are conveyed to the Department of Education pursuant to Act 307 Session Laws of Hawaii 2022. With that, first testifier is Stacy Aldrich.
Aloha, Chair.
Aloha.
Aloha, Chairs Lee and Kim, and Vice Chairs Kadani and Inoue, and committee members. Stacy Aldridge for the Hawaii State Public Library System. We've submitted our comments on SB 2613 relating to public school land transfer. The Hawaii State Public Library System requests the committee help to complete the separation of HSPLS from DOE that occurred in 1981. Although operations and management for all public libraries was transferred to the Board of Education and the State Librarian 45 years ago, control over the property for those libraries was never completed. We believe that this is the most efficient and cost-effective way for us to continue with managing our building projects going forward. My colleague, Mallory Fujitani, is in the room to answer any questions that you might have, and thank you very much for this opportunity to provide comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Next testifier, Keith Hayashi, DOE.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. This is a bill that was submitted through the governor's package. It's a cleanup bill for Act 307. We asked that some of the TMKs are adjusted because some of the work that DOE has been engaged in, that we no longer need those in there. One thing we are asking in our testimony as an additional amendment is deleting the land identified as TMK 43-6002, parcel 10, it's the Wilcox Elementary School. That's on page 4, line 7, from the department to Kauai. Currently, the parcel is owned by the department, and we would like to transfer that to the county. That's tennis courts, and it's next to the city park, so a county park.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We had one individual signed up, Johnny May Perry, in support. That person obviously not here. Anyone else wishing to testify on 2613? Hearing none, members, we're open to questions. I had a question for libraries. Stacy? Mallory? So, what prompted this measure to come before us now? I mean, this has been an issue for a while now, right?
Yes.
So can you just explain?
We've had some issues over the years when we do construction projects and we do other things. And so about 6 months ago, we had a construction project that got delayed because of the issue about lack of site control. And so construction got delayed, and then we were eventually able to work out a right of entry and an MOA with the Department of Education. But going forward, it would be helpful if we didn't have to do that. And then even more recently, not related to the public and school libraries, the Kahului Library, which we thought we controlled but completely, but I guess Department of Education still noted on the EO, the executive order. And so the County of Maui, and actually Senator Hashimoto is the one that forwarded me the email, they're needing DOE to sign off on that for us. So it's just a lot fewer steps if we could just handle it in-house for our public libraries.
So can you explain the delay, lack of site control? Can you explain I'm not sure why it got delayed?
So in that particular situation, the KL, we're building a brand new library. The current library is in the middle of the parcel. We're building a new library for the public on the edge of the parcel. We tried to work with the DOE over the 3 years to get our CIP project out to bid. But, it was difficult to get confirmation on things. And then when we were ready to start construction, they said, hey, wait a minute, you can't start construction because you don't have a right of entry.
Who said that? DOE?
Department of Ed. They basically told us we don't own the property because we're not listed on the executive order.
But then you folks had been working with them for 3 years on this.
Mostly it was us trying to engage somebody with the Department of Ed to work with us. We finally got Kurt Otuguro to confirm that we could move forward with our project. So basically the new library project is within the same TMK, but just on the edge so we wouldn't impact the students. Because right now the library is in the middle of the campus.
Okay. Okay, members, any other questions of the library? If not, okay, DOE? So why is it so difficult? I mean, what's the problem?
So there's a couple of, I'm hearing issues. One is the testimony that was submitted, which I haven't seen yet, where the idea is that parcels that are state libraries on DOE lands should be carved out. Conceptually, without seeing what the testimony says, that sounds right. Some of the libraries that are on DOE land are sort of off and not on the main campus. And so, it would make sense to sort of carve that out, subdivide, and get a new TMK. So that sounds reasonable, but I haven't seen the testimony
Okay, no,
yet.
that part I understand.
Yeah, so
The
the
part
oth-
I don't understand is why has it been so hard for the libraries to get hold of somebody at DOE and then get the and then get a delay in the construction because they don't have the right of entry because again, this is concerning what's going on over at DOE.
Yeah.
It's one obstacle and another.
So for
Very
that,
troubling.
So for that issue, that's a separate issue, separate from this bill. That was, I'm familiar
No,
with
it's not
that.
separate from this bill, because that's why we have this bill, because they can't work with you guys to get this stuff going. Now we have to pass a law.
Oh, well, this particular project they're talking about, this bill wouldn't have helped it because it was the library in the middle of the campus that they're moving to the edge of the campus. So in that project, it's moving forward. They started construction. I wasn't around when it first started 3 years ago, but since I've been here, we've issued a right of entry and they've got everything they need to proceed. My understanding is that because it's integrated with the campus, still, even though it's on the more of the corner, it affects the pickup drop-off area.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of back and forth about how to get that
So when
fixed.
did you, oh, that's Jesse Sukeef, right?
Oh, sorry, Jesse Suki.
Okay, so when did you folks try to start the construction and it got delayed?
So we had our pre-con meeting in August, and we were supposed to start, NTP was right after Labor Day. And we started construction end of October.
End of October?
Yeah.
So you had to wait until end of October to do it because you didn't have the
Yeah,
right of
actually
entry.
Jesse was very helpful in trying to move it along and to get the right of entry. But then they also, I guess, within the DOE, they decided we needed the MOA, which we would normally execute after construction is completed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Question? Senator Hashimoto?
So Deputy, do you feel that cutting out DLNR is actually going to help you speed things up
Cutting out DLNR?
going before BLNR approval, right? Isn't that isn't part of the bill about that?
No, I don't think so. Act 307 transferred, the intent was to transfer certain parcels by the counties owned and by the state owned to DOE.
So I'm reading in, it clarifies that the disposition of school buildings, facility, and grounds are made by DOE shall not require approval from the BLNR. Or is that already in the underlying statute? Or are you guys asking for that as well?
That clarifies the way it's supposed to be disposed of. Yeah.
Right now, or are you guys asking for that
Right now,
additionally?
because this question about, whether BLNR needs to act, but because of operation of law, BLNR doesn't need to act. That's I'm sorry.
So you guys are currently going through them, or you're not?
No, we're not. Because BLNR's position has been, and they have a record of this, when acts transferring land like they did like you folks did for ag lands to DOA, and it's by operation of law is the interpretation by BLNR, and they have a memo on this, it's in their records again. They look at operation of law as the land is transferred on that date certain. And they don't do like quitclaim deeds or something to formalize the transaction with Bureau of Records.
Okay,
But they'll-
that's fine.
yeah,
I think what I'm trying to distill it down to is, so they're not in hindrance of this process.
No,
So
they're not.
you fully control this process.
Yes, yeah. We're asking for clarity, yeah, yes.
Okay, well, hopefully, there's more clarity because I think it's been kind of slow. I think, we've been trying to transfer lands, right, which you guys, I think, been knowing that BLNR, I think had to be involved in those parcels, but when I called them, they were never the problem. So it seems like it's an internal DOE issue, right? And so I hopefully you folks will at least focus on doing land transfers in a more expeditious way, right? And I don't know what's holding it up because I have a property on Maui we've been trying to transfer to you since when I first got into office in 2018. We started to try and move it forward, and Kishimoto at the time didn't move on it. So I think we're finally moving on it, but it shouldn't take that long to move a piece of land that's I think been trying to be transferred to the DOE from the early 2000s, right? So I don't know what's the problem. I hope you're asking for the right clarifications for us to speed this along.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've been doing land use transactions for the past 20 years, and I just joined DOE in September. And every piece of land and parcel is different. That's what makes land use law exciting. But if I can work with your office and what are the problem ones that you're pointing out that are sticking, we can try and figure out why is it stuck. There could be a particular issue about it. It could be internal, but at this, I don't know which exact parcel it is, but we can look at it.
Yeah, no, what I'm looking at is globally so do we have people that are specifically working on this? Because I think at a certain point, we just put it on the back burner and say, oh, we're gonna get it done, and then it just kind of never gets done,
We
right?
do have a person.
Is that new?
Assigned. He's been there for as long as I've been there. I don't know how long he's been before that, but
Who is
he's
that?
been there for some time.
Who is that?
Roy?
Roy?
Ikeda? Yeah. Well, I think I've been working with him, and I think there needs to be some sense of urgency in how we transfer lands. And so I think we really need to take a deep dive to see what more can we do to make this happen. Because if we're going to go at the pace that we were going, I don't think we're ever going to get it done. So I think we need to hopefully these clarifications will help, but I think there needs to be a deeper dive on what else needs to be done to get this going and done, right? Because if this is done, then we can move on to other things, but I feel like this is taking really long.
I'll dig into that
Yeah,
one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So if you folks have total control, why do you need clarity? Don't you folks put clarity into it since you control it?
Well, so one of the reasons why BLNR takes the position that it's not going to issue some kind of transactional document for lands that are transferred by operation of law, because that can take a long time, especially if it's land court issues. So, but when you need some kind of thing documented, even if it's operation of law, as if you're working with third parties, so like for an easement, like with HECO, you need more than operation of law. HECO wants to see, like a, quitclaim deed or something. So that might take more time. But
But you just said that that's not the hindrance. LNR is not the hindrance, that you folks have complete control of the process. So, but you're saying you want clarity, but wouldn't you folks be the ones to put the clarity in it?
yeah.
If you have control?
Well, we would prefer clarity from the legislature that these happen from that date certain by operation of law. And that would really make it clear for everybody that this is an action that has happened, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Senator.
Yes, thank you, chairs. My question and comment with regards to, Chair, on section 4, page 21, and this has to do with the public use after school is out. And the comment I have is that the department, you will assess fees, which you have been doing right now for public use, which is, to me, I think commendable that you have some income. However, the question with regards to parking, when it says any parking on roadways and in parking under the jurisdiction, and this is on the next page, on page 22, under the jurisdiction of the department, and this has to do with 301-1151, that you will be charging a separate fee for parking on roadways near a school. And knowing Oahu and the population here, there are many cars that I see that are parked after school hours that are parked near schools. Are you already collecting fees for that or charging?
So this would fall, so a couple of things. One is, this is only for property that's under the jurisdiction of DOE. So that includes some roadways, but not all roadways. So we couldn't charge parking for
So like
like a
city and
county road.
county or-
Yeah. But these facility use procedures, we have rules for it, and how much they can charge. We have a process. It's done by school, by principals and their administration.
Okay, so when you're talking about the jurisdiction, then it's more internal then, within the property and not outside of a road?
Yeah, not outside of the department.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions?
I just have one comment, which is love to follow up on some of the land transfer process later on, offline discussions. Some other properties I know we've been talking about where there's tens of millions of dollars sort of on the line.
Yeah.
But it's based on the timeline, so
Happy to help with that.
hopefully we can sort this out.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Senator Hashimoto.
I just want to make clear, Deputy, that on page 21, you are deleting the whole section regarding the BLNR transfer. So you should just know that, right? And you should be clear because you said the underlying statute already gave you that, but we're taking that whole part out on page 21,
Right. Because
right? So now we're actually, the legislature is actually taking it out, which is not, that's not what you said before.
So to be clear, when you look at these land transfer bills that the legislature has issued for, like, again, the DLNR, DOA lands, there's different bills like this. The language is sometimes different in different bills, but generally we interpret it as by operation of law. So we just want clarity across the bills, and if you strike this out, that'll make it clear that it's by operation of laws and that we're not required to get some kind of documentation that we submit to the Bureau of Conveyances, for example, unless we need it because we're working with a third party.
I understand, but I think you should be clear with us that the bill does, in fact, give you that authority here to not have to do that.
It does cleanly transfer the land, yes. It
Right,
does.
but you were saying that you already had that power, but you don't.
Well, that's an interpretation we make, but we would like the clarity. Right.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure if people, you're actually reading the bill, it clearly is striking that section out.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Can I comment, just with regards to the land division regarding the previous speaker, was that the land transfers that we did several years ago identified certain areas which you have under your jurisdiction now. But this is in addition to the land transfers we did previously, then this takes care of all the TMKs to be part of that.
Yeah, there was several bills that transferred counties and, yeah, so this,
Well, we did that a couple of years ago with
Yeah.
the county lands and the state lands.
And we appreciate
Only
that.
to certain school
right,
areas, yes.
right. And so, but this amends an existing act, so we're not
Yeah.
adding anything new.
Right,
Yeah.
so you're just adding more to that act with the TMKs listed in the measure.
Yeah, we're cleaning it up, actually, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, there's no other questions. We'll move on.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to the next measure, SB 2147, relating to Love My Library Day, which designates the first Friday in February of each year as Love My Library Day in the state. And we do love our libraries. So up first is the Hawaii State Public Library System.
Just want you to know we purposely did it a day before Valentine's Day so we can love our libraries today too.
Awesome. Mahalo, Chair. Stacy Aldridge, State Librarian, Hawaii State Public Library System. Mahalo for this opportunity to testify from one of our well-loved libraries, the Princeville Public Library in Kauai. We stand on our written testimony, of course, in full support of SB 2147. This bill acknowledges an important reality. Libraries are vital spaces in our communities that create opportunities for all to read, learn, and connect to ideas, information, technology, and each other. This day is not a state holiday, but it is a statewide statement, a reminder that our Hawaii libraries don't just store knowledge, but they spark possibilities. I thank you for your support. I wish you all happy Valentine's Day, and mahalo for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Up next is the Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, Chair Lee, Vice Chair Inouye. I'm Heidi Armstrong, Department of Education. We stand on our testimony in support. This measure elevates the profile of school libraries. It encourages community advocacy, and it reinforces the critical role that libraries play in fostering literacy and student success. Thank you.
Thank you. That's everyone who has signed up to testify. We have 3 additional organizations and 11 other individuals in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? Nobody loves their libraries? Thank you, everybody. Let's move on. Excuse me, are there any questions? All right, seeing none. Let's go into decision-making. Turn it back over to Chair.
Okay, thank you. We're on decision-making on Senate Bill 2613. This is the school land transfer. Recommendation is to amend the measure to include Part 3, Section 1, subsections A, B, C, and D. This amendment would clarify the statutory requirement for the transfer of lands that the public and school libraries are situated on from the Department of Education to the Hawaii State Public Library System. This will ensure clear ownership, improve long-term planning, capital improvement coordination, and align operational responsibilities with property control. Senate Bill 2613 transfers to DOE 51 library properties. This amendment would then allow for the transfer of 12 public and school library properties to the Hawaii Public Library System. We'll also take into consideration the request from the DOE regarding Wilcox Elementary School and make technical and non-substantive amendments. Members, any discussion, any questions? Hearing none, Vice Chair for the vote for 2613. Chair votes aye.
Senator 2613, Chair votes aye. Senator Tanaka, excuse. Senator Hashimoto.
Aye.
Senator
Aye.
is adopted, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Committee on Waterland, same recommendation.
Okay, thank you. The Committee on Water, Land, and Culture and the Arts Chair's recommendation to pass SB 2613 with amendments. Chair Lee.
Aye.
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Chang is excused. Senator Lamosao.
Aye.
Senator DeCourt.
Aye.
Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this joint hearing
Oh,
is.
yeah, the other one.
Sure. Oh, we have one more?
No, yeah, we got
Yep,
water,
sorry.
land.
that's okay.
Okay. IT, you didn't dog us out, right? Okay, sorry.
That's all right. Moving on to SB 2147 relating to Love My Library Day. Seeing all testifiers in support, recommendation is to move out with tech amendments. Non-substantive amendments. Any discussion? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
The Committee on Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts Chair's recommendation to pass SB 2147 with amendments with 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes. Hearing none, Vice Chair, Chair Lee, measure is adopted.
Same recommendation for the Committee on Education, and I do love my library, so Chair votes aye.
Senate Bill 2147, recommendation is passed with amendments. Any reservations, no votes?
Thank you, and now we
Now we're
are
out.
adjourned. Okay, thank you. For the Committee on Education. We are on a 105 agenda. Today is Friday, February 13th. I will dispense with the other comments regarding if we have any difficulties. We have difficulties all the time. But the first item on the agenda is Senate Bill 2602. Relating to general fund, requires the access funds for the University of Hawaii tuition and fees special fund at the end of the fiscal year lapse to the credit of the general fund. And we have Tom Yamachika testifying for the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. Tom, are you there?
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Tom Yamachika for Tax Foundation. But it seems like most of the people testifying on this bill see it as a raid. We look at it as a technical fix. The statute already provides for lapsing to the credit of program IDs UOH 900. I think the problem is I think that's the problem because UOH 900 is a program designation. It's not a fund. So it looks to me like a technical fix, but if it's not, then we think there are much better candidates for rating.
We will take that under advisement. I
Thank
will
you,
relay
Chair.
a message to the chair of the Ways and Means Committee. Thank you. Okay, we have next President of the University, Wendell Hensel and Luis Oliveira. And it's good to see the chair of the Board of Regents also here, Regent Lee. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair. We rest on our testimony in opposition of this measure and are here to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Let's see, we also have had testimony from Christian Fern and from Leilani DeMello in opposition. Anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Hearing none, members, we are open for questions. Sorry. Okay, so President, if you'd like to come forward. I guess the question that was raised during the Ways and Means Committee and also during our briefing about the excess balance that is left in the tuition and fees fund and plans that you might have for those monies, which we never got a definitive list of what those might be. And also, I guess the concern's been raised since about consolidating all of that balance left over, other than the 16% reserve, as to coming directly from the community colleges. So, President, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. No, I'm happy, appreciate the opportunity to speak to this. And in response to the testimony, this is a major shift in how the university would be funded. This would not be a technical amendment. As you know, currently fund balances for tuition and special fees after the year is over remain. They come back to the university central fund and go back out to each of the other funds, which is how they are currently held. The problem, which I think you all identified, is that there is a significant amount of money in those balances that is not being productively employed for strategic purposes. In part, that is because they are held at the individual level, and our goal is to begin thinking of how to use those funds productively to be invested for the benefit of the whole. You know, all of our campuses are just a different way of saying students across the university. They are all students of the University of Hawaii. There are different challenges that arise at different times for different campuses. Having the ability to control that kind of investment centrally is a huge benefit, but importantly, nothing has happened in that regard. Those monies are 100% under the control of each of the individual campuses at this time. So I'm not sure where the perception came that it was centralized. It's not. It's actually held at each individual campus. There's nothing in fact, that is standing between them and spending that money. And I have, on more than one occasion, asked those chancellors to identify strategic investments for which to employ that money that is sitting there. And I haven't seen anything particularly that we're able to move on. So part of my challenge is, where are the centralized issues like EAB Navigate and student success, and creating a common standard of care for each student across the university is the point. And it's not, I think Luis is new, but we've always taxed those accounts to do centralized functions. It's the only way that we can, where there is, common technology, or there's common things that are employed across the 10. The fact that it's sitting in individual accounts doesn't mean we aren't using it for the benefit of the whole. So that there's no change there from where we currently have been.
Members, any questions? Senator Shimano?
Thanks, President. Maybe you can clarify what are the balances that, I guess maybe start with the biggest, which is Manoa, and, who's the biggest, who's the smallest, and what's the aggregate, I suppose, if you add them all up?
Sure, I believe VP Salaveria has that information.
Thank you, Senator. Luis Salaveria, Vice President, CFO for the University of Hawaii. Right now, the largest balance of the tuition and fees special fund does exist within Manoa. But if you look at the overall distribution of how it is between the 4 years and the 2 years, the 4-year campuses have approximately 185 in tuition and fee special balance, but the community colleges have approximately 142. So it's very close when you think about the difference between the 4 and the 2-year colleges. But to specifically answer your question, Manoa is the largest with approximately 93 million in the tuition and fees special fund. The smallest in this particular case would be Windward Community College at about 6.6 million.
And then what is the difference between what is your policy versus what is excess?
It is approximately about 100. It's about 170 million between the 16% policy versus the balance. Because right now, the balances that we have in the reserve accounts is approximately 144, of which the total balance in the tuition and fees special fund right now is 326.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, Chair. Because currently you can retain your unspent balances, right? And you don't have to report it.
No, we do report it.
You report it. But I think the bigger picture is the disclosure and the reporting process, because how often do you report it? Not annually.
Oh, yes.
We do report annually. It's part of the annual report that we do provide to the legislature.
Yeah, this is all very public information that repeatedly is reported. Part of the reason we're talking about it is I have raised the issue, as you know, Senator Kim, of my concern that we are not using these funds. We should never be sitting on these kind of funds without productively employing them in some type of research or a return for the university.
I think, I'm just hoping people can go in and out because every time the door opens, it's hard to hear. I think the concern is that the way it's put out, because it's not all in one place sometimes. Even when we ask a budget, Ways and Means, it's not clear. I know you sent me the CIP, I called you back and I said, I'm still not getting the information that we asked for. So I think that's where Senator Ports is coming, is that while you give us pages and pages of stuff, it's very hard to decipher because it's not clear as to how some of these funds.
Sure.
It's like now, when we had this reserve balance, you lumped up all of the community colleges.
Correct.
And then I asked for it, and then we had to ask again to finally get it broken down by community college to see exactly.
Yeah.
There is 7 or 9 community colleges?
7.
7 community colleges, and 4, right, 4 year? 3 4 year. So, and they're almost the same, but you got 7 campuses at the 142 million dollars.
I think part of that, and we're always happy to report in whatever form that you prefer, but you allocate the money to the 7 as a number. And so we both have the reporting from the Senate and the legislature as to how we receive the money, and then we have internal accounting principles of how it's broken down between the 7. Quite often, that money is held at the community college level for that system within a system. So it actually is, it's both and and it's how you want that information reported, we're happy to provide it.
Yeah, and I think the problem is while it sits at the community college now, the understanding is that there was a possible proposal to take all of the money and centralize it from each of the community colleges. And I know the community colleges are concerned because some of them have been very fiscally responsible, so they have some nice balances there. And then I know, like in Manoa's case, there's a lot of spending that have gone on in a lot of areas in which they have some possible shortfalls there. And so the community colleges feel like, that they shouldn't be supplementing for Manoa and some of the mistakes that Manoa might have made. So as long as you keep it with the community colleges and then ask them, can we have monies for certain projects that will encompass and benefit all of the campuses, I think is probably what they would prefer at this point. But so if we don't scoop the balances or raid the balances or whatever, technically take the balances, then what assurances do we have that you're going to leave the monies with the community colleges?
Well, I think the important thing to point out first and foremost is the legislation actually sweeps that money back to the center. That is your own legislation that sends it back to the system. So, and that is not what we're doing at this moment. So it's an interesting position in which we're having this conversation. But there has been no directive to do that. I mean, again, candidly, I'm not sure what the benefit is of sitting on money that's not being productively employed for the benefit of all of our students. The way I can just say for me personally, but my entire team, we are interested in serving students, whether they sit at the community college or Manoa. It is not to benefit one campus, but it is to provide an equivalency in terms of support for the students across every campus. And candidly, sometimes the allocations that come out of the legislature create imbalances in that, which you're entirely, that is entirely legitimate, but it doesn't erase the need on the campus. So at this moment, there's absolutely no intention of raiding the community colleges in any sense for the benefit of Manoa. And as part of the good faith of that, as you know, we are splitting my position from the community, from Manoa into just the system for exactly that purpose, because there is this churn and there is this concern that if I sit in both of these positions, it creates some favoritism toward one. So, what I can assure this body is that is absolutely not the intent of anything we've done. And this is really, these are fears that are being articulated as opposed to a response to any action that we've taken.
Well, I appreciate that, and I agree with you. I think that one of the problems, and for me, having been chair, I've never really saw what each campus has. And if I knew that they have a balance, then when they come in and ask us for positions here, positions there, monies for this, then I could have said, hey, you've got a $39 million balance sitting in your community college, why aren't you tapping that? But because it's not been reported to us as such, that I don't have that ability. But now that we're getting that information, I know exactly what the community college, and when they come into us, then I'm going to ask them, what are you doing with your balances? Because I agree, we shouldn't be sitting on, anything.
And we will make that information available.
Yeah, we're happy to report it and that was one of the first questions I had, because most of it is reported in the aggregate for the community colleges. That's that concept of a system within a system that creates some tension and some confusion, honestly. So these are all things I'm in complete agreement with you. We need to work toward creating that transparency.
And the community college has to be accountable as well.
Absolutely.
And there are some campuses that need it more than others. And yes, we've done that, but not looking at what the balance is now that we know there's balances.
Thank you, Chair. And, for the university to be able to sit on this excessive amount of funds indefinitely without any oversight could also be very problematic as well. So I think the transparency is good. I think the accountability is good. And I apologize for misspeaking, but the reporting, in addition to what the strategic plan on these excessive funds I think is important for you folks to lead in this initiative, to bring this information for us rather than have to propose a bill and then get the conversation started and then get these reportings. So
understood. And as for that is why we specifically did not ask for funding this year, except for two things where the state investment was a critical component of it. we have to manage our money internally. I don't want anybody to ask me for a dime when they have $1 in their hand. And I feel the same as we come to you and ask for funding. We need to get our house in order. And what I can tell you is there are many initiatives, which I think we've shared with you in terms of really significant investments in AI, et cetera, that the reason you don't have a list in front of you of those expenditures is because that's still being put together. I'm happy to share those with you as we put those. But the effect of this bill isn't just to take that money, it is to handcuff the university forever from being able to spend any type of balance that carries over for long-range planning, for debt service. So there are very, very significant implications to this particular bill as written. And there's many things that we can do to be more, more forthcoming so you know what's happening. Yeah.
Senator Hashim.
So I think your point is well taken, but I think if you look at what we're faced with, right, I think when you see this big balance and there hasn't been much details, I think you're formulating it, but I think we have to react because we really want to see some action with this balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think to me, part of what I'm hoping that you will do and you will take a look at is assure us that there will be a policy shift, and I hopefully. The chair of the regents, is here, and so he hopefully understands as the board, if your 16% is what is if that's the base, fine, okay, that's the regent's policy. But I hope you institute another policy to really give campuses guidance on what they should be carrying over, right? I think in the DOE it's like 5%, great, that's all they get, and if you exceed the 5%, then we're going to take it, or so at least you're showing, I understand you on a spending plan, but part of it is. How do we stop this from happening in the future, right? And I think that's the bottom line.
We are totally in alignment. The challenge is, of course, there is the concern that if I do take that money, right, that is what's occasioning some of this concern.
That's why you need a policy, right?
But it's more than a policy. It's the ability of chancellors to envision forward strategy for their campuses. So that is accountability that I am imposing upon them, that you don't just come, for example, once a year to show me your numbers, but to show me the investment and the mentality, so that if there are investments that they need that exceed their balances, we can support that to move the university forward. Some centralized funding has to be available to do that, or it is each man for himself on each campus, regardless of need or regardless, frankly, of vision. I think, for example, in Leeward and UH West Oahu, there's some really exciting work that's being done there that's being led by Chancellor Peñalosa. That is driven by Chancellor Peñalosa. If I'm not seeing that on other campuses, I need to respond in a way that insists that occur. But what I can tell you is the first question I asked my leadership team in the interviews is, why are you sitting on these large balances? Because it isn't optimal and it doesn't reflect good strategy. It is unique, I will say that. And I think it's important for you all to know that. Usually the university is not in this position and likely will never be in this position again. This is a reflection of COVID and federal funds that came in. And so what it creates is a one-time opportunity for significant investment at a moment of considerable change for the university. And we have to move forward on that. But your point about it should not look like that is absolutely correct. And it's just, it takes some time with me coming in new and setting the new strategy around what we're building on to really execute that. But we've already spent.
Yeah.
We've already spent.
No, and I get it. I think hopefully within the next couple of months we'll see some more clarity. But
happy to show you.
But I think that at a certain point the campuses also need to know what their parameters. I think it was unchecked, right? And I think you may be a great president now, but you're not going to be able. None of us last forever, and so I think if we can build internally, the policies in place,
absolutely,
I think that's really important.
No, accountability is necessary, and it's at multiple levels. Right? Agreed.
I think Senator DeCourt and I would be fine if you gave it all to Chancellor Peñalosa.
Interestingly enough, they have the smallest balance.
Yes.
So it's a good example for me to show you of where if we are strictly driven by any particular campus's balances, they will be the clear loser. In part because they have to pay debt service out of the money that comes into UH West Oahu. Most other campuses don't have to do that. So part of the equity question I'm asking is, how do we serve the West Side in an equitable way when they are inequitably taxed with what comes out of their allotment. And that can only be done with a little more flexibility and a little faith, and I understand that that's in short supply, but a little faith in our ability to manage the whole to ensure equity across the whole.
Well, appreciate your leadership in that, at West Oahu, obviously. I think that, they do have one of the smallest balances, I noticed that, but also they have a program, the business program, which is it seems like a premier program that's been growing and not been given enough resources. And it's sad that that's occurring. And those are the kinds of areas that we look at and then possibly step in to try to assist them, because if they're doing a good job, and the leadership prior was saying, well, you're such a big program that we're going to focus on the smaller programs, and then didn't assist on the
Right.
business side. And that's really sad.
Yeah.
But we certainly have to look at that. The other area, when we talk about policy shift, and I know you weren't here for that hearing, but when we talked about the travel moratorium, I mean, this is clearly an area that even though you have these huge balances, we still need to keep everybody in check as far as, are we actually, using the tuition funds monies, taxpayers' monies
Right.
Responsibly, because there's excessive travel going on, not just at the University of Hawaii. I mean, DOE has that as well, and some of the other departments. And so we want to see a pause, and if you read the bill, you know that it doesn't cut it out entirely. We hope that the Board of Regents will take a look at that and look at what the policy, and sometimes the policy is there, but it's the execution and the oversight is just not given.
Yeah, so a couple things, with all due respect, I would hope that I or the system can step in to fund business when it's doing well, where there are insufficient funds at the campus level, right? We should never, anyone at the system should be coming to this legislature when we are sitting on money that can be
Okay,
productively
can we
employed.
have that printed out and broadcast?
It's common sense, right? I mean, it's just common sense. That does require flexibility to be able to move money and have some fungibility between it. But I agree with you, that's a place to do. On the travel, what I wanted to say, there is an extensive approval process that occurs, and we are implementing a new policy where if it exceeds a certain threshold, it must go to an additional layer of approval to an EM. So we
So
are already
we're not
moving on that.
waiting. We're,
Yeah.
we're gonna start instituting additional policies above that, and essentially, we've heard the legislature and the concerns.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I know the testimony came that they were in opposition of that measure. And again, we're trying to give everybody a chance to get it right and not have to pass a law as to travel. Right?
Agreed.
I mean, we want you folks to be responsible in doing that. And I think in most cases, but you have a large institution, and so is DOE. It's a large institution, but even more so, that kind of oversight is really needed, because the taxpayers are looking at, and I just want to say for the record, because I've read some comments about, well, what about the legislature? I want you to know that majority of us, when we travel, our airfare and our hotels are taken care of by the nonprofit entity that is inviting us to these seminars and to these conferences. And we list every scholarship that we get, we list on our gift disclosure. So if anybody want to know what trips we went on and how much was paid for it by an entity, they can go onto our gift disclosure and see that. I just want to editorial that, because people do say, oh, what about the
No,
legislature?
understood. We agree. In fact, I thought some of the concepts that you included, for example, of a limit of the number of people that can attend the same conference, is one that we are looking at internally. That makes sense, right? And that kind of accountability, just to tie it back to the larger bill, if there is an expectation that you spend it or we sweep it, it will lead to some frivolous spending in order to spend it down, versus the ability to carry over from year to year to invest in larger scale, more impactful things. So there's legitimacy to everything you're saying, and I really can tell this committee in absolute honesty, we're working on all of these things.
And you're looking at how we can use, computer and digital and Zoom and all of that, because, if any time, it's now in which we're
Right.
finding more and more people virtually working, and so forth. But if you can do that from home, then why do you have to go travel to South Carolina or to, China to that? And there are some, very, very worthy type trips that, it's good to take. And we realize that because we do travel. But again, we got to keep in mind how we balance the taxpayers' dollars because they want to travel as well, right? So, yeah, so I hope DOE shares your folks' attitude because certainly they did not express that during that hearing. So, any other questions? Okay, thank you. You might want to sit there because the next item is also you folks.
We'll just stay.
Okay, Senate Bill 2658, also relating to the University of Hawaii, it requires the Board of Regents to expend funds appropriated to new, improve, or modernizing existing University of Hawaii facilities for only those purposes and not for current, ongoing, or anticipated capital improvement projects. And so, let's see, same cast of characters, I assume. Well, actually, we have here AG. Real quick, yeah, sorry. Technical amendment.
Good afternoon, everyone. Deputy Attorney General Candice Park. The Department of the Attorney General recommends indicating that the bill is a law of statewide concern. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, appreciate that. And then we have, let's see, Jan Govea signed up, so that is you.
Chair.
You don't look like Jan Govea, but
Vice President, CFO for the university, we will stand in our testimony in opposition, here to answer any questions.
okay, well, why don't you come forward? Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay. So you want to, I know we have your testimony here. Did you want to elaborate at all?
Yeah, so I think as the way that the bill is written, and I think I do understand the need in order to gain a little bit more clarity around the RIM funding, because the RIM funding is a lump sum budget that the university gets. But if you look at the way that the bill is written and how you cannot use it for new capital improvement projects, that essentially is what RIM is, because RIM is kind of an ongoing expenditure of like deferred maintenance of new projects as they come on board. I think if the intention really is to say that you cannot use RIM funding for specifically appropriated CIP, I don't know if that's what this bill actually does.
So you're advocating for that instead?
I think that would be a discussion that we should have. I don't want to speak for the Vice President of Administration, but as it stands right now, I mean, our RIM funding, and we are trying to get a much better hold on the way that we actually allocate funds towards capital expenditures. I think one of the things that we deal with, and this is not a problem unique to the university, Senator, is that we get appropriations for CIP projects. And oftentimes those are based upon a conceptual spec of what they think the project would be. I think it's imperative upon us that if there are going to be cost overruns, if there are going to be these types of increases in expenditures for projects going forward, that we inform the legislature and we ask for that money going forward. So the utilization of RIM, and in order to accommodate what it should be used for, which is to accommodate our extreme backlog in deferred maintenance, is something that we need to go back and basically get a better hold on the way that we're spending money on our deferred maintenance requirements. So that's where I think, the way the bill is currently written basically doesn't address that. In many ways, it might render RIM unusable because it is a lump sum appropriation for new deferred maintenance.
Right, and I think, it's always my goal that the entities or the departments manage themselves, and when they fail to manage themselves in areas, then we end up sending these kinds of bills, and it may have unintended consequences, which is why we have these hearings to fix that. But, you come in specifically for CIP, and you tell us the project, you tell us the cost, and we give you folks that money. Then you come in and we have repair and maintenance or RIM monies for improvements, and you want a lump sum budget, or, in the past, we didn't give lump sum because you want some flexibility. We gave you that. So, now you want to say, well, we should be able to use that. And no, that's not the intent, but that's how you folks have been using it.
And we want to be clear. I think our intention is to follow the legislative intent. It always will be to follow legislative intent. So I think if the legislature, would want us to be a lot more, accountable.
Well, shouldn't you folks, should be common sense in the sense that to be accountable. If you come in and ask us for Sinclair and you give us a amount of money and we give you that money, now you're over, you can't just go run and go take it from RIM because we have so many projects. You have all these housing projects, students' housing that needs repair and maintenance. You have deferred maintenance, and yet you're using it to cost overruns of these projects instead of holding that entity accountable for those cost overruns. You know, I mean, John Govea came in here and flippantly said, oh yeah, Sinclair, we're over. Oh yeah, we use, RIM monies. Oh yeah, well, it's gonna be delayed another year, 2 years. I mean, just like, in the private sector, it should be gone.
I understand,
And it wasn't just one project.
And you have my commitment, and I want to work closely with the Vice President of Administration. I think when it comes to issues, I mean, there are a multitude of reasons why costs increase based upon it. I mean, scope creep is a big thing that exists throughout all of state government. But then we also need to do a better job with that. When there is changes in project scope or anything like that, that we're also doing the reverse, which is the value engineering proposition in order to bring projects in line. And so that we don't exceed that. But these are concepts that we need to.
So how do you address like McCarthy Mall? They came in for monies, we gave them monies, and all of a sudden they increased the scope. It was supposed to be only drainage, and then decided, oh, we're gonna make the mall, we're gonna beautify the mall and spend another $17 million and take it out of either tuition monies or take it out of RIM. Again, where are the priorities?
And I understand, I cannot speak for the decisions that were made in the past, but I think going forward, the intention really is to hold the line on what we are proposing to do with capital expenditures, because it is a significant expenditure of the university that has implications not just on what you provide to us in CIP, but also on tuition and fees, on the lump sum RIM budget. So part of this whole process is to gain a lot more, I guess, accountability around how those.
But I also hope you look at the structure as well, because that vice president is in charge of majority. I mean, if she's not focused in on this, then I have a hard time understanding how just alone her performance alone shows that she's not performing as she should be. So that needs to be.
Yeah, again, candidly, that was something I identified right when I came in, that this is something, and this is not a job. This is like many jobs that are put together for VP Govea. I think we were laughing last year about wearing the yellow parking vest, right? Which was funny, but not funny as sort of a all-terrain athlete. The reason that hasn't devolved yet is because it will devolve as part of the Manoa split with the chancellor. So those conversations are happening right now as to what belongs on the campus, what makes sense for it to be there. I mean, because Manoa is our biggest campus in terms of projects, right? And what belongs at the system. So that job will naturally be split as part of this process that we're doing. That's the intention.
Okay, well, it's taking longer than I'm comfortable with at this point in time, but Senator Hashimoto, you had a question? Sure. Oh, Senator Cole, sorry.
This bill would close that legislative loophole. I mean, it will close the loophole because right now we're basing all of this on interpretation and intent, where we're going to have to make the lines clear with the next set of leaders that come in. Because it provides too much of an opportunity to move the money around, where if we're giving you a lump sum, maybe we should shift that over to direct appropriations, because this is a flaw that we're seeing overall, not just in your department, but in other departments as well. And not to shift gears, but also in vacancies. We know that funds is used as a cushion to tack onto other salaries. So, to ensure that the legislature is not being misled when we approve where these appropriations are going to go, and then later on we find out that there's been a shift. I mean, we are getting the message out to the public on where these funds are going. So it doesn't make us look good when we're not looped in and we don't have to approve it. The unelected Board of Regents are approving it, but they're unelected. We are the elected legislature. And so again, closing in on that loophole, I think it would just make the communication clearer, no?
And to your point, I think we can do a better job in working with the chair to provide a lot more the kind of detail that you want with the information that we're providing with regards to expenditures, and we can continue to do that. Whether or not that requires a bill to actually execute on is another discussion. But the way that this particular bill is written, I just don't know if it accomplishes what you want. And, you know, this is something that we could work together on, Chair, and you have my commitment in terms of like providing you with the information.
But do you agree, though, that some sort of legislation does need to be put in place so it takes the guesswork out of it?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I think the detail and the amount of information in terms of what we provide, because the RIM budget, if you look at it, it's deferred maintenance, and you know, it's no secret that we would need just $100 million a year just to kind of keep up with our deferred maintenance, but we never get $100 million. So the detail of like how projects move on, I mean, you may have something that's on the deferred maintenance list, like say, for example, an HVAC equipment that's slated to be repaired in that schedule like next year, but then it breaks this year. So now all of a sudden it has to move up on the priority list because it's just the nature of the deferred maintenance.
Yeah, but it's still in deferred maintenance. It's not it's not going to be in the CIP. You're not robbing from CIP to pay for deferred, but yet you're robbing deferred to pay for overruns.
And I think that's where we want to create the granularity as well as the detailed information so that you know how we are spending our money on the RIM budget going forward.
Yeah, and I think that we did bring this up during the WAM info briefing is that the proactive approach to start these improvements and these repairs before buildings are falling apart and we're having to vacate and we're having to pay for other housing. I mean, the maintenance of it really has to start being more of a priority so we don't find ourselves in this situation over and over again. And then you folks are asking for 100 million here, 100 million there.
It's a big hole we're in right now, and it's going to take a lot in order to dig out. And we're having continued conversations about how we do fund, you know, our ongoing capital improvement projects and what kind of support we can get from the state, what we can handle internally. But these are all kind of part of kind of a larger overall strategy in managing our property, plant, and equipment.
Are you evaluating these overruns and these delays as to what is,
So I've only been here for 2 months,
well, yeah,
Chair,
but people behind you or people back managing, you know, Vice President Gouveia has been there a long time, her staff has been there a long time. The Board of Regents have been there. I mean, we're looking at Band-Aids. We need to get to the bottom, the problem that's happening.
And President is really good at making us very accountable for that, actually.
Well, again, I understand your concern, and we've talked about this. These things cannot be kicked down the road because they're hard to solve, right? We have to tackle them, and we have to do it in a really meaningful way. So I appreciate the point, and I'm learning along with you and listening and whatnot, and these are things we need to take back and have conversations about. I hear that you're thinking, how this is being allocated is not how it's being spent. If that's the case, then we have our own work to do to get this.
And it's not new. And you know, you've inherited this. These are issues we have talked about in the past, which is why it's frustrating for us. And,
Understood.
You know, trying to give you the leeway to make some of these improvements. And that's why sometimes it's not happening fast enough because we've been here for so long, fighting these issues and trying to get the university to be responsible for this. And you know, therein lies the frustration. I see you wanting to grab that, Senator.
So I guess going back to my fundamental questions, I guess today is, what is your policy on this? Like, is moving forward, is your policy going to be that you cannot use RIM funding for cost overruns, or are you still open to that? And I think that's the bottom line is, if you have a big backlog, we need to know if that's the backlog you're going to take care of, or you know, what is the strategy, I suppose? I hear you have concerns with the bill, but I think we need to know, what are you thinking, right? Because do we need the bill, or are you going to actually take care of this? And
I mean, Senator, from my perspective, just candidly, I would never answer that question definitively without speaking with the people who are the experts on it, right?
Right.
And I think I would always ask you for more flexibility, not less, with a trust that has been earned about where it should be spent. But
Got
to
it.
the extent that we are expending money in a way that even, I don't think it is deceptive, but feels deceptive to this body, that is not in our interest any more than it's in yours. So we need to go back and have this conversation.
Okay, so the conversation hasn't been had then.
This particular, I mean, my understanding, and in every other university I've been in, has been the flexibility of the team to identify the highest priority of need for that type of lump fund funding. That's pretty typical.
But I think it's a statement of values, right? Because is the statement of value that you're going to actually do the backlog of R&M, right?
Absolutely,
or are you focusing on all
100%.
these only the new projects,
Well,
right?
the reason I can't give you a definitive answer is because it's in motion,
Yeah.
right? We're in the middle of some of these new projects, so
And I get it, but you're coming into a new fiscal year, you're going to get more money, right?
Right.
And I think I think it'd be helpful for us to know what you're thinking, because if absent of that understanding, I think we're just probably just going to move the bill along because we don't have that understanding,
Yeah,
right?
your understanding is my understanding. The priority is the buildings that we have on campus. Now, some of those, it is much more efficient to create a new building than it is to try and renovate it. So it's a moving target, but we cannot, my focus is not and will not be to create shiny new things for the campus. It's to understand what's the usability of what we have and how do we raise it to a level that we're proud of that's sitting on campus. Because, I mean, candidly, we all know there are buildings and infrastructure that we have that are not something that makes us feel good about. And that's $1 billion in arrears. And that's going to take time. And we are absolutely committed to that over new construction, with the exception that where the new construction is more economically viable than the renovation, that is the approach we are taking. But if what we can do is go back and talk about the policy as it's being articulated here, which I think is a little different than what the bill is saying.
Correct.
So,
Okay, thank you, Chair.
So the new construction, which is, if it's warranted, and when it's warranted, then you would come into the legislature and get money for that specific. And so that's the process. So otherwise, if it's not the case, then we don't give you CIP, we're just going to give you a lump sum, and then you decide whether you're going to use it for new, whether you're going to use it for repair and maintenance, but that's not the process. The process is, you come in, you tell us what you want to build, what's new, how much it's going to cost, we give you the budget, then you go out and then you do that, right? But then you start to take it out on RIM, so that has to change. Okay, can I get the Board of Regent Chair up? So has the board even approached this issue? Have you folks even looked into some of the cost overruns and delays in some of the CIP and asked the questions, why is this happening?
We've discussed, yes, we've discussed, and what we're looking at is we're going to look at our governance and see if the CIP should, right now we have too much going through our institutional success committee, and we might need to split some things off, because you've got, say, like the budget, building and maintenance, CIP, everything all in one committee that is, I mean, there are times that we rush through it, and that's where the deepest conversations are, in those committees. And we have discussed looking at, through our governance committee, what should be split out, because this committee structure we put into place,
Not that
I think,
long.
3 years ago, and we had a lot of committees, and that one committee has just too much.
It's just like that one vice president has just too much. That seems to be the
And the
common
system,
thread.
the system restructuring
Right.
should help.
we are reporting on every one of those things quarterly. I mean, they do get regular updates, but I think what the board chair feels and I feel is there's not sufficient time to dig into why and what type of oversight may or may not be occurring as part of that.
And we've also discussed the actual report, where it just shows us the update with more detail.
So, I'm not going to try to tell you folks how to break your committees up or what you're going to name them. But it is very difficult for the public when they see Committee on Student Success. What does that mean? What does that include? You know, you don't know budget, you don't know if it's very difficult. So some of these really nice terms that you folks have named your committees may sound good, but for the general public, even for myself, I have no clue what's in student success. Could be everything, right?
Yeah.
The whole intent of the university is student success. But yeah, so I was not aware that CIP is under students. So maybe if the public had a better idea of what some of these committees actually have oversight of, it would be better, because, yeah. So maybe you guys need to talk about that, because certainly I think that change is making everybody more confused as to where the responsibilities are and who's doing what as far as committees. Yeah, and I understand combining it. We combined lower ed and higher ed, so, you know, I mean, so we're not arguing that, but certainly I think that the board needs to really look at some of these areas in which, yeah, you know, should the vice president have that many positions? And I know you defer it to the president, but I think the board needs to weigh in on some of this, because it shouldn't be the legislature. And again, if you folks are doing it, then we're not going to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be here and ask these questions. That's your guys' job. But when you don't do it, then we do it. And then if you're not going to do it responsibly, then guess what? We're going to pass a bill. That's just the nature of it, right? So a lot of times when we introduce measures, it's kind of like a message. And if the message is heard, then maybe the bill doesn't get passed. The message not heard, then the bill, if it don't pass this year, may pass next year, you know? And it's really troubling. Last year, was it the year before, where we had a compromise with the administration on a certain bill and we did certain things. Then they went and lobbied the governor to veto the measure, which to me was very disingenuous, and why we have this distrust between the legislature and the administration. So we welcome the new leadership, that hopefully we won't have that kind of situation again.
Understood.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. You probably gotta sit there, President. Senate Bill 3229, this is on UH Donors Foundation, yeah, authorizes the University of Hawaii use of University of Hawaii tuition and special fees fund to conduct donor evaluations, requires the related report to the legislature to include any donor evaluations conducted using monies from the fund. And so, President, you're up, or Lewis.
We stand on our testimony in support of this bill. We welcome the accountability. We had already begun to discuss how to do this type of donor assessment, probably using a third party to come in and do some surveys and focus groups. So this is most welcome.
Okay, I hope it's not gonna, you know, when I hear consultants, I'm like, okay, more funds. So-
You don't want the same people.
Yes, no, that's true. So I'm just kind of cautioning, you know, balance
Perfect
it.
consultant use in this case.
Okay,
Yeah.
Tim Dolan.
Thank you, Chair. As echoed by President Hensel, we stand by our submitted comments on SB 3229. We welcome any suggestions for improving our operations and enhancing donor relations, and therefore we have no objections to the bill.
Okay, good, thank you. We had one, Leilani DeMello, individual in opposition. Anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? If not, members, any questions? No questions? Okay, very good.
Thank you.
We're moving on to the next one. Senate Bill 2659. This measure is Board of Regents prohibit active employees of the University of Hawaii or RCUH of the university from serving on the Board of Regents. And we have Yvonne Lau, or?
It's just comments. Thank you.
Okay. And then Scott Collins from HGA in opposition. I think that's all. Anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2659? I was going to call you anyway, Julie, so good mental telepathy.
Chair, committee
Yes.
members, Gabe Lee, Chair of UH Board of Regents. But speaking as an individual, since the Board of Regents meets next week to decide on bills, for this bill, I recommend that an exception be made for student regents that work part-time, as well as professionals, full-time professionals in their, say like the doctors or attorneys that are part-time faculty at, say, Japson or Richardson. Both of these would increase the pool of candidates. Thank you.
Okay, members, questions? Wait, don't go. Good question. Question, don't go. Yeah. So as far as possibility of conflicts, you don't think that just because they're part-time that it lessens it?
The, well, we've had it if the regent feels that there is a conflict, that they excuse themselves from it.
But we haven't seen that in the case of some of the members that are actually employed by the university that is sitting on the board.
No, we've had incidents where people have left the room on certain conversations.
Okay, well, one comes to mind that that person didn't recuse themselves. So, but yeah, I guess it's a matter of wanting to try, it's like the Board of Education wants a teacher on, or DOE wants a teacher, or HSTA wants a teacher on the Board of Education, it's just that there's and then again, there's no guarantee on how that person is going to act, but it's to keep it so that, retired teachers, retired professors, students that then decide they want to, after if they're stop employment, want to be on. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities there, so.
Yeah, and then for the regents, I know that they do look through the agenda and they take the advice of counsel if they should also abstain from any of the parts of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? No. Okay. The next item on the agenda, I think UH is done. Thank you, guys. We shall shift over. Senate Bill 3325. This is on the relating to public school Medicaid reimbursements. Requires Department of Education to establish an updated plan for maximizing Medicaid reimbursements for administrative and support services provided to students with special needs. Requires annual reports to the legislature. First up is Keith Hayashi for DOE.
Good afternoon, Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, members of the board. I'm Heidi Armstrong, Department of Education. The department supports Senate Bill 3352. We do agree that transparent accountability is warranted at this time, and we strongly support this measure. We've put one amendment in our testimony that would make for more seamless reporting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Johnny May Perry, individual, also in support. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? If not, members' questions. So I guess Heidi, if you can come back. So how soon do you think that this plan will come to fruition?
Okay, we will, it will come to you as the bill requested 20 days before next legislative session. If we get it earlier, if you want it earlier, we will give it to you. I would like to clarify in our amendment, which was B, the bill asks for the number of eligible administrative and support services provided classified by complex area. We can give in the report the direct services for each complex area, but we cannot give the administrative numbers because it's lumped all in one bucket. But if you wanted direct services, we could leave that in. But the administrative services, which are all the paperwork that, or the reimbursement for any activity that's done to make sure that service gets delivered, that is in one bucket. And we wouldn't be able to separate that by complex area or service delivered.
Okay, and the intent is to ask for reimbursement, not just for one portion that you folks are asking for now.
Correct.
The nurses side, right? It's across the board.
We want to go across the board. We will start out because our nurses are contracted, and that's our starting point for starting up reimbursement services again.
Okay, members, any questions? Okay, hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 3232 relating to universal school meals establishes the Universal School Meals Special Fund to accept deposits of the Medicaid reimbursement received by the Department of Education. Greg Hayashi, DOE, or?
Hi. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members. Brian Howell, Assistant Superintendent for Fiscal Services, testifying on behalf of the department. The department stands on its written testimony, which provides comments on this measure. But I would summarize just to say there's support for the intent of universal meals. There's just some technical issues with nexus and jeopardizing the current use of those Medicaid dollars.
Okay, thank you. Osatui? HSTA? Here. Lauren Zerbel on Zoom.
No, present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay. We have Brandon Kinnard in support and Johnny May Perry also in support. Anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, hearing none. Questions, members? Brian, I have a question. Okay, so if I read your testimony correctly, you mentioned that the cost for the program, where is that? Department agrees with the reporting provision of the bill, except clarifying amendment requested the bill will ensure that, no, that's not it. Where is it? Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. Okay, well, why don't I just ask this? So what is the cost to run the program that the reimbursements would then pay for?
I think the revenues are used both to maintain the infrastructure, the staffing, in order to do the claiming and support for the processing of that, but as well as to provide capital to churn through. I believe we have to spend money in order to bring the money back in. Any excess funds historically we've been using to assist with special ed related expenses. Historically, that's been in the area of skilled nursing services. So the exact number on what it costs to maintain the program, I would have to get back to you on.
Okay, but in light of the fact that we haven't been getting the full reimbursements because we've only done the nursing, and the fact that last year or this past year we haven't even collected anything, we've gotten some direct services. So how are we paying for the program, and what is that cost?
There's a current carryover balance in this fund, and this is thanks in part to, we had 2.3 million in revenue in 22, 6.4 million in 23, 9.4 million in 24, and 2.6 million in 25. So because of that historic revenues, that's how we've been able to weather so far the lack of revenue.
So we could actually take portions of whatever reimbursements, because obviously when we go for the full pie, then we'll get a lot more money coming in.
I think that's what this bill is contemplating, but I think the way I read it is it's all of the revenues.
Right, but as you know, we can amend measures, but.
And it's a laudable use for universal meals, but as I mentioned, we have been using it for to offset what we would otherwise require general fund support for in our special education area. And it's been a good buffer in terms of shortfalls. We were running a shortfall in skilled nursing, for example, for a couple of years. Eventually, the legislature was able to come through and assist us with additional general funds. So It's a mechanism that's worked. It's a mechanism that currently has uncertainty in future revenues. So just at this point in time, this may not be the best way to fund universal meals is really what we're testifying on.
So how would you pay for universal meals?
Oh, boy. Well, I think, the food service program, when it requires subsidies to operate, the source that we look to is the state general funds for support. Currently, we have a $74 million general fund appropriation to support that program. And I would expect that additional assistance would be needed from the state side. And that's estimated at about 16 to 26
And if we
million.
don't have that money, then what? Well, I guess they were looking at how do we fund some of these programs that the community believes is needed, that the schools need? How do we get the monies to the schools?
I suspect that's part of the motivation for looking at this bill. I mean, public education, unfortunately, is not generally a money-making endeavor, especially at the K to 12 level. But this is a creative idea.
So in the areas that we've been leaving on the table millions of dollars that has not been asked for, and hopefully now with the plan, now we focused on it, that, some states have gotten as much as $40 million, and I don't know if we're gonna get that kind of lump sum, but certainly, even a fraction of that is a lot more than what you're getting now to run the programs, and you're sitting on some excess funds, and how do we get those funds into the classrooms and to the schools? And that's where this bill is coming from, right? I mean, this is one idea. It doesn't have to be meals. Could be other things. Could be teacher pay. Could be other kinds of things. So.
Yeah, and certainly with anything you get reimbursed for, the nature is you're spending money to make money.
Exactly.
And but yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions? Not. So next item. Senate Bill 2551 requires the Teacher Education Standards Board to develop an alternate pathway for a visiting international educator permit aligned to the duration of the educator's J1 visa program. I just want to note that Senate Bill 2551 and Senate Bill 2875 are the exact same measures. That's how important we felt this measure is. So we had two bills put on the agenda at the same time, but it is the exact same bill. So I will take the testifiers for both measures as I called you. So testifying for Senate Bill 2551 and for Senate Bill 2875. So first up is Amy Alpayani. Amy, testifying for Legal Clinic.
Aloha. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I stand by my testimony. I believe that there is a need to address teacher shortages, and this opportunity and resources are valuable. And from my experience and contacts in the community, I've been told it's a very good program, and I support it.
Okay, thank you. Next testifier, Douglas Boyer, also on Zoom.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Doug Boyer, and I am the principal of Lanai High and Elementary School, and I strongly support both of these bills as they're being combined. On Lanai, J1 visa teachers filled 21 of our 62 teaching positions. Without them, we would struggle to staff classrooms and maintain instructional continuity. Nearly half of our students, 49%, which is about 306 children, identify as Filipino. Many of our J1 teachers share linguistic, cultural, regional, and family ties with our community. Their ability to communicate with parents in their native language strengthens trust, deepens engagement, and builds authentic school-home partnerships that directly support student success. However, as we know, Hawaii does not recognize foreign teaching licenses or reciprocity and requires additional costs and time-sensitive exams. There are times that teachers cannot complete the full licensure within the 3-year period. To put this into and expand for their 2-year extension. To put this in perspective, consider Professor John Hattie from Australia and New Zealand, the internationally recognized educator, former teacher, administrator, immunity professor who synthesized over 1,000 meta-analysis on student achievement.
Okay, Doug, I don't mean to interrupt you, but your time is up, and we have a full house of other bills we have to take. So if we might have questions for you. So thank you. We have next up Keith Hayashi for DOE.
Good afternoon, Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, members of the committee. Sean Bacon speaking on behalf of the department. We stand in support of this bill and are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitzi Higa for Hawaii Teacher Standard Board.
Sorry, good afternoon.
Good
Mitzi
afternoon.
Higa speaking on behalf of the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board. We stand in opposition to both of these bills. The board can already do this, and we do. We license and we permit J1 teachers all the time. So this is, putting it into law is unnecessary, and that's what the board has decided. They can actually bring this idea up, and they have in the past, but they have not, they didn't feel a need to enact it. Anyone from anywhere can get a license or permit as long as they meet the criteria. And we already have people in our state that are J1 visa holders that do have permit or license. The problem being that some of them, we're just looking at the list, because we were asked to look, and we looked at the list, and there's a secondary mathematics teacher teaching second grade, and there's teachers for secondary math or English teaching special ed. That's a problem. So that's something we're looking at, but it's not our decision because by law, emergency hire permit, they can be, the DOE can hire them and put them there. But that's concerning for us because we're about high quality education, and that's the vision and mission of the Hawaii Teacher Standards Board.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Probably call you back for questions. Christina Sablan in support, testifying for the legal clinic. Not here. Okay, and we have 1, 2, 3 others that have signed up. 1 in oppose and 2 in support. They're not here to testify. Anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, if not, Mitzi, you want to come back up? Members, any questions? No? Okay. So if this bill's not needed, then why do you think these bills have been introduced?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, maybe because they're not aware that it's already available and already happening and the board already has that authority, perhaps. There is a teacher shortage and we are concerned with that, and we have been working on apprenticeship and writing grants and everything, trying to grow our own that Kidani started out on the west side. We're still trying to grow that still, and we're trying to actually fund it because we found one of the problems was that these teachers during student teaching, they weren't paid. But through the apprenticeship program, they have to be paid. They can't leave the classroom. And that was why we went for that, because we realized that was a burden to them and a barrier. So we are trying, but just in different ways.
Okay. Well, it's just that, it's come to our attention, and obviously that's why the bills are here, that there seem to be a lot of obstacles. And so we're trying to, work around those, and a lot of times we end up having to do legislation because, one, sometimes that just having a bill introduced will bring up the discussion and maybe change can happen. Other times it is because people are frustrated because things aren't moving the way it should be. So then we have more than one. As you can see, there's 2, and I know there were other bills that was introduced like this. We had a situation where we had a complaint that this teacher has been teaching and then went to get her credentials or her license, and then she was denied, and the remedy was that she had to repeat her student teaching, but she's already teaching, and she's been teaching. So to me, and then she'd have to pay more money to get that student teaching. And so sometimes, I guess, what I'm trying to say is that the board, we need to be able to get the board to look at some of these cases and be flexible, because we do have a teacher shortage, and we do need good teachers in the classrooms. And when they cannot get their license after jumping through all the hoops, then it's even more exacerbated for them as well as for the students. Yes, Senator Hidani.
So is there an appeal process for these teachers?
There is.
And how many of them go through the appeal process and when?
That's a good question. I haven't looked, but there have been a few that have been, they present their case to the board and they do let them have an additional year. But there is a way that they can do it if they meet the criteria.
So does HSTA assist these teachers to help?
I'm with
them through-
HTSB now, but HSTA does
Well,
try to
whoever.
assist,
Is
yeah.
there an agency that can help them through the process? Because some of these teachers are not citizens, and they want to become citizens and stay here and teach, and God help us know that we need the teachers.
I agree. And so we have been, as a board, we have been helping them by telling them early on, like what they need to do, giving them links to the approved programs if they need them. But most of them from other countries don't need them. They just need to take the praxis. We recently saw an email that DOE is offering them study help, which I think is ideal, that they get this study help. And some have even taken their praxis before, like at least one of the praxis before they came to the US. And that was a good thing. So they need more support and guidance. Some principals have been really good about paying for the praxis once they pass as well. I think they use Title II funds for that. At least that's what my principal used to do.
Senator Hashimoto.
So I'm confused. You're saying that some principals are paying for it. But,
Well,
but when your
it's
executive
up to
director
the-
was here, she said everyone gets it. So what's the truth?
You would have to ask the DOE because I
No,
don't
no,
know what the
your
current rules
executive
are.
director is the one who said that.
I don't know.
Maybe you should go back and you should find out what she meant by that, because
Maybe
when
she
you
knows
make
more than I do
statements
about
here,
that particular
right?
subject.
No,
I'm
no,
not sure.
if
Why
you go
isn't
back
she
to the
here?
tape and go watch, she said that they pay, right, for, and if you want to take the praxis, the DOE reimburses now. Blanket statement, and now you're saying it's only certain schools?
That's my
See,
personal
the
knowledge. I
crux
don't
of the
know.
whole issue is we had this bill last year. It's a year later. I'm still trying to grasp, what did HTSB do in that 1 year period to make any progress in this space? Any progress?
For the teacher shortage, we've been working on their apprenticeship.
Specifically
That's
for the,
what we've been
but
doing.
I've heard in the teacher apprenticeship program that you guys can't even spend on the money.
We're not allowed to spend on it until consultant confer is finished, which it's finally finished, but now we wait for the unions to sign,
Okay, and so when are you gonna start spending down that money?
once they sign.
Okay, so my point is, what have you done in the last year that's tangible
Believe
to
me,
help
we've been
us?
working on that a lot. That
Okay,
was part of what
but
I
if
had
you've
to
done
do.
nothing, if you've done nothing though, because if you're just waiting, that does not help us in this situation. So that's why if your board doesn't understand why it's important, I don't see why they're not here to understand what our questioning is, what our concerns are, reading the testimony.
Just so you know, they did set up an appointment with your office.
I understand that
right?
it's about
So-
time
which is good, and they
because-
met with Donna
excuse me,
Mikado Kim as
excuse me,
well.
but they're setting it up because they want confirmation before this committee.
No, they
right?
wanna-
There's no one who's been proactive about the J1 program.
They want to make sure they understand everything, and they're
That's right, because they
full-time
have to
teachers,
come
so
before this committee for confirmation. And now we're going to ask the tough questions of why they didn't do anything over the last year. Right? So I just want tangible information, right? You guys put a moratorium in place on new teacher training programs. You're relying on the DOE, right, to do the training, to study for the practice. Why didn't HTSB do something like that? If you feel it is so important, why didn't you start doing some type of pathway training to help these individuals who want to get their praxis, help them? Help them other than just guiding them. Why don't you set up some type of class for them, right? Be proactive. That's all we're asking you to be, is be proactive. Be proactive. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Any others? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no others. I'm going to ask for your indulgence. I know you folks, some of you here have been waiting a long time. We do have a measure right after is Senate Bill 2549. This is on student transportation, and Senator Hashimoto has some amendments for that, and he has to leave to catch a plane. So I'm going to take it out of order, just that one. We only have 3 testimonies, should go fast. So Senate Bill 2549. 2549, student transportation, authorize Department of Education to hire a new contractor if a contractor under a student transportation contract fails to provide service on a contracted route for 5 or more consecutive instructional days requires the department to assess a penalty if a contractor fails to provide service on a contracted route without approved justification. And so we have Attorney General Ann Horiuchi on this measure. Thank you for being here in person.
Good afternoon, Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, members, and Horiuchi from the Attorney General's Office. On this measure, what we noted is that it establishes significant consequences for non-performance. To promote clarity and reduce the likelihood of disputes, we thought it would be best to add a section to the bill that requires express reference to the new statute in DOE solicitations and contracts for student transportation services, and we provided language in our testimony. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Bonnie Kakui on Zoom. Procurement Office, not here? Bonnie?
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, member of the committee. Bonnie Kakui, Administrator, State Procurement Office. We will stand by a written testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Keith Hayashi for Department of Education.
Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, Senator Hashimoto, Shantajima, Assistant Superintendent, testify on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony, which provides comments on this measure. We have concerns about removing individual bus routes given the current contract structure, which may put us at risk for improper termination of part of a contract. We also have concerns about procurement integrity and transparency with the 30-month procurement exception. And ultimately, we're not sure if this is the appropriate approach to use at this time to address the root cause, which is a nationwide school bus driver shortage. We stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2549? Hearing none, we are open for questions. Senator Hashimoto.
State procurement, please. Bonnie, I don't know if you're still there.
I'm still here.
Can you elaborate on your concern with that it's redundant in the statute? So does the DOE have some of these powers already to enforce these routes?
Yes, I don't know what, thank you, Senator, for the question. I don't know what the actual solicitation said, but the statute and rules does allow the agency to terminate for default for goods and services in part or in whole. So depending how it's fashioned, they could have terminated this part of the contract if those particular routes were not performing. And they could have also used performance bonds. Again, I'm not sure if that was part of the original solicitation, that if they did not perform, there was a fallback for them, but it's already spelled out not only in the rules, if they use the AG's terms and conditions, that's also spelled out in termination for default.
So why did we need, when we had the bus shortage, why did we need an emergency proclamation from the governor then?
I couldn't answer that because I'm not sure what superintendent said to the governor that prompted this, but again, it is allowed already in statute and rules.
So they could take a current route if it's non-performing, only a route, not the whole contract. And then they could find an alternative means to fill that route with another vendor?
Again, without knowing exactly what the contract said, the statute allows, the rules and statutes allow for you to terminate in part or whole. So maybe that particular route was, I don't know how they packaged together, but it does allow them that option to terminate. They don't have to terminate the whole contract. They could have terminated parts of it, and it was up to the procurement officer to make that determination.
So can they do it temporarily, or it has to be a straight cancellation?
Temporarily cancel the contract. You can stop performance.
The portions.
Or you
the portion.
can. Oh, the portions.
Right, because we're trying to apply a real world, right? Real world example here, right? A bus route is not being, fulfilled. So you want to break off that route so you can actually get someone to do that route. So all we're asking is, can they do that? And if not, then maybe we do need this. But if you're saying it's there, then we need to understand that too.
The rules allow you to temporarily suspend And the rules also allow you to issue a notice to cure. So you can issue a notice to cure saying, if you don't take corrective action within a certain time period, we will go to default or to full termination.
Okay, maybe we had to bring up DOE then.
Okay.
So DOE, why don't you use this more often then? If they are claiming that you have this power?
So just to clarify how our contracts are, we don't contract by routes.
No, I understand, right? When we said we can break part of the contract up, right? We know that you're doing a whole probably, I don't know, complex area, but we're talking about if there's certain routes, which that's the problem, right? If you're non-performing, SPO is apparently claiming you can do that, but we just need to understand why you're not doing that, and what do you then need to then be able to just fill those routes?
So going back to our contract, again, we don't contract specific routes. The contract
Yes.
structure, we contract drivers and buses. So basically what that allows us to do, the way we pay the contractor is basically in 4-hour blocks. So we pay the bus in 4-hour blocks, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. The contract doesn't have the specific routes. So what that does, it allows us to create the route, and we can change routes. We can tell the bus company that because we're short right now, we can say we want drivers on this route and not on that route. So we don't have specific routes in the contract. So that's why I know what you're trying to do, and we appreciate the effort. It's just that it doesn't fit the current contract structure.
Okay, so what do you need then? Because that was their question to the DOE. What do you need? This is what you gave back, and now you're saying you don't want it, but we still have a problem. So the question is what do you need for us to fix this problem? And that if there is an issue like this, you have a pathway for remedy, right? We're asking you, what is the remedy? And you need to give us a solution, because we're on year 3 of having bus problems, right?
Correct. Well, yes. So as far as what we need, and we don't want to do more of the same. So,
right? Yes, exactly.
So,
that's why we have this bill.
Right. So I had shared in the previous testimony that there was a 6-year downward trend in losing bus drivers. And so that was more of the same. In 6 years, we lost 230 bus drivers. So something different was done last year, which on credit to our bus companies, they worked with us and they provided significant financial incentives for the drivers. So they raised the wages, they gave paid training, they gave signing bonuses, they gave guaranteed hours. That's resulted in a big upswing. So with a 6-year trend of losing 230 drivers, in 1 year to now, we've gained 69 drivers. So to me, as far as what we need, as far as a bill like this, I think there already has been a change that has taken place, and it has resulted in an increase in bus drivers. I appreciate this extreme measure to basically force accountability on bus companies. I think it's good to have in our back pocket as something we may need down the line. I think at this time, because our bus companies are working with us and doing something different, and it's producing results, I say we stay the course and let this work out.
I don't buy that, because part of the reason, so what's going to happen is whenever you go in for renewal, that's when you're going to have problems. So to me, you're looking at it in such a short-term view that you need to be looking at how do we fix the problem for the long term, right? Because that's when we had the big issues, when we switched over contracts, right?
Correct.
So if you're not thinking about that into the future and you think it's fine now, I'm very concerned. Right? So you need to understand what are the structural changes that you need to completely fix the bus problem. It's, as I said, 3 years. I think the legislature is very tired of us getting the calls right before school, because it's last minute, right? It's not like you're telling us months in advance. You're telling us like 2 weeks before, 1 week before, and they call us, right? And so we're frustrated. So we're telling you, assistant superintendent, we need to fix this, right? And so to give me that answer, I don't buy it.
So I know you're addressing a 3-year concern. So this is a 6-year trend going down, and it's upswing after this past year.
I understand. You didn't listen to the first part, though. You have to be looking at when you do the next bus renewal.
You're talking about after this contract that we have right now?
That's right. What do you have in your back pocket if they do the same thing to you, that they're like, oh yeah, of course we're gonna do this. They get the contract and then they don't deliver. What are you gonna do then?
So I know the concern is that they're not fulfilling the contract
That's
right now,
right.
right? Which is a concern. I think on the bigger scheme of it, that's a concern from us also. And we're not condoning that, but in the bigger picture, the big concern is there's a nationwide shortage of bus drivers. And you know all that,
We
right?
heard that how
Yeah.
many times already. We're asking you, what do you need? And if you're gonna tell us nothing, I'm very concerned.
So we don't need. a
Because
bill-
we had the other bill, which was to then give grants. You said no, right? It got
Correct.
deferred. We're trying this. And if you tell us no on this, and you just want status quo, there's probably gonna be problems next year.
Well, status quo is not status quo because something did change last year and it's promoting results.
Assistant, I'm telling you, it did not work in my community, right? We're talking about neighbor island communities. We're talking about also the Big Island, right? We still have problems. So why you're telling me that you're okay with not doing anything, I am very, very concerned.
No, we're not doing anything. And I think for specific routes, it has gotten better on every island. In fact, specifically for your area, Senator, I think from Maui, last year we were short
that's
28 routes and now we're
I
short
get it.
2.
All right. Well, you know the story of what I had to do at the beginning of this school year, so don't give me that with the problems of all the Hawaiian immersion kids, right? That was on you guys. So if you don't feel that you want to work on something to bring us, which I met with you guys early on as soon as that incident happened, this was the bill that you guys brought, and now you don't want it. Something's wrong.
Sorry, did you clarify we brought this bill?
I asked the DOE after the meeting, you were there, on what do you need to fix this problem? And this is the bill that was presented to us.
Okay, sorry, I don't recall proposing this, but
Okay, well, maybe you need to go talk to the DOE leadership and get
will.
on the same page and figure out what we need to do with this bill, right? And so we can actually do something about the bus situation.
we will. I think my concern with the bill in enforcing compliance on the contractors right now, because of the efforts that they're doing, and just to share some of the specific efforts that they're doing in addition to the financial incentives, is given the shortage, what some of them are doing is they're subcontracting other tour buses to fulfill certain routes. So one of our contractors.
That's right, which we approved last year.
Right. So some of them are still paying for that, which I think I'm concerned about the daily fines aspect.
I understand, but if you're not gonna fulfill the routes, then something has to happen. Some people need to be scared that if they don't fulfill the routes, there is gonna be a penalty.
So the amount that they're investing to cover those routes is more than the fine. So they're already working with us to try to fulfill these routes.
I understand, but there are people who are still without buses,
I understand.
right? So until we fix that solution, I don't think the legislature is gonna be happy with us not continuing the pressure to make sure that all those bus routes get restored.
Correct. And that's our goal too, is to have all of them restored.
Right, so we want to give you the tools, and if you're saying you don't want the tools, that is very, very concerning.
I think it's the approach is what we have a hard time with.
Okay, so if you don't like the approach, then give us an approach, but we want a bill.
I'll
Go
repeat
back,
that.
figure it out. Hopefully, with the chair's indulgence, we'll pass this along, but I'm hoping that you guys can figure out what you need and come back.
Well,
I'm
we
just
give
worried
you to
that this
Wednesday.
bill-
We'll defer this measure and wait till Wednesday so we can put the amendments in that you will come up
Okay.
with.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions? Thank you very much. Okay, here we go. So we are on Senate Bill 3334. This is relating to education, repeals the complex area superintendent position, clarifies that the school community councils shall submit principal evaluation to superintendent of education, who shall have final authority to appoint principal, requires Department of Education to adopt rules. First on the agenda, we have Keith Hayashi from Department of Education. In opposition.
Good afternoon, Chair Kidani, Vice Chair Kim, I'm sorry, Senator Chair Kidani,
Chair Kim.
Chair Kim.
Okay, 3 times the charm. I'll start over.
It's okay,
Good
we know what you
afternoon,
mean.
Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, and Senator Hashimoto. I'm Heidi Armstrong, Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in opposition of this measure. Eliminating the complex area superintendents would dismantle the regional leadership structure credited with driving academic gains, resulting in a loss of critical oversight, operational stability, and support for school principals. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, appreciate your brevity. We have Hawaii State Board of Education, BOE. Hello? Comments?
Thank you so much. Aloha, Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, and Senator Hashimoto. I am Bill Arakaki, Vice Chair of the Board of Education. The board stands on its testimony, offering comments on this measure, and we strongly believe having complex area superintendent leadership within our communities is very important to support the schools, staff, students, parents, and partners. Thank you so much, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to the people on Zoom right now, starting off with Akawi Asinsen. Are you
Not
on
present
Zoom?
on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, not present. We have Jermaine Myers,
Also not present.
present. Okay, both were in support. We have Corey Takaki on Zoom in opposition. Corey?
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Corey Takaki, and I'm a high school principal on Hawaii Island. I'm here in opposition to SB 3334. As a sitting principal on Hawaii Island, I want to share what this proposal looks like from the school level. Having a complex area superintendent who understands our complex, our feeder patterns, and our community context provides critical instructional leadership and operational support. Removing that layer would not streamline the system. I believe it would reduce responsiveness and create greater instability. I also want to emphasize that as a neighbor island complex, we already operate on limited resources and with less immediate access to central office support. The CAS structure provides context-specific leadership that understands the geographic and staffing realities that we face. Eliminating that support would widen inequities between Oahu and outer island schools and create more instability where consistency and strong leadership is essential. Regarding the principal evaluation and selection, I believe that clear systems already exist and the CISA evaluation process is already in place with collective bargaining. Principal selection procedures are also already in place. From the perspective of someone responsible for the daily operation and long-term success of a high school community, I believe that this bill would reverse progress rather than strengthen our system. So I respectfully urge you to oppose SB 3334. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Gary Kanamori?
Aloha, Chair and members. My name is Gary Kanamori. I'm a product of Maui Public Schools, a parent of current public school students, and the principal of Pukalani Elementary School. I am writing in personal opposition to SB 3334. I served as a principal of Princess Nahiana in Lahaina during the wildfires, where 2/3 of my students and 1/3 of my staff lost their homes. My CAS, Dr. Rebecca Winke, and BKKM CAS Desiree Sides provided the leadership we needed to survive, really. Even though Dr. Winke lost her own home in the fire, she and CAS Sides never stopped leading our complexes. Together, they managed the coordination between FEMA, Army Corps of Engineers, EPA, work that's way far beyond the capacity of any school, any of our schools. They're pretty much a vital extension of the state superintendent's leadership. And I feel like without this bridge, a principal is forced to choose between navigating all the bureaucracy or being present in their schools. So I urge you to maintain that current structure of our schools' support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Richard Carosos? Richard, are you on?
They're on Zoom, Chair, but it seems like they're unavailable at the moment.
Okay, we'll go to late Zoom, Alan Kumalai.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Not present on Zoom, in support. Okay, we shall move on. We have Corey Allen in person from Nimitz. Welcome.
All right.
Dear Madam Chair and committee members, the average size of a school district in the United States serves roughly 5,000 students. For comparison's sake, superintendents of these school districts serve a collection of schools or communities that our complex area superintendents serve. However, our numbers outweigh the average significantly. As a principal in the DOE, my one school of 575 students exists in one complex, which consists of 7 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. This complex exists in a complex area of roughly 3 middle schools, 3 high schools, and between 10 to 15 elementary schools. This implies that whoever leads the complex area oversees over 10,000 students conservatively. Should this bill pass, these numbers would multiply at least 2 to 3-fold in regards to the responsibility a district superintendent would have to take on. If your bill claims to lessen the administrative burden of the department, then it is misguided. As a principal of the Hawai'i Department of Education, I stand opposed to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Pasantino? Hope I said that correctly.
Yes, ma'am.
Pasantino.
Aloha, my name is Joe Pasantino. I'm the principal of your neighbor middle school, Kaylee Kulani Middle School, right down the street. I stand before you today not just as a principal, but as an educator who has dedicated over 20 years of my life to Hawaii's public schools. As a teacher, a vice principal, and now a principal, I'm here to speak strongly and personally in opposition of Senate Bill 3234. Every single day in our schools is a challenge. Some days it's a child in crisis, some days it's a parent who is hurting and frustrated, and some days it's staffing shortages, safety concerns, or serious instructional needs. Many of those days, it all happens at once. Through every one of those moments, my complex area superintendent has been my lifeline. She is not just an administrator, she is my direct support, my coach, my problem solver, and the person I turn to when decisions are heavy and the stakes are high. Our CAS oversees 29 schools, yet she still answers my calls, responds to my emails, and shows us when schools need help. When a crisis happens, I don't have time to wait through layers of bureaucracy. I need leadership, I need guidance, I need someone who understands schools and stands with us. And that is exactly what the CAS does. So when I hear this proposal to eliminate the position, my honest question is, who will help when a student is in danger? Who will help step in when a parent situation escalates, and who will guide us through legal, staffing, and instructional challenges that happen every single day? Because eliminating CAS does not eliminate the problems in our schools, it only eliminates the support. After 20 years in education, I tell you with certainty that this job is harder than it has ever been. Our students have greater needs, our families are under more stress, and our staff are exhausted and doing their best to hold it together.
I'm
The
going to have
CAS
to
is
ask
the glue
you
that
to
holds
summarize.
leadership together across schools. I love my school, I love my students, I love this profession, and I'm in opposition of Senate Bill 3234.
Thank you. Jim
Sorry to
Hosoda?
interrupt, Chair. We have Mr. Caruso on Zoom available.
Oh, okay. We'll go back to Zoom. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Richard Camaroso, and I am the principal of Lahaina High School. And I am here today to strongly oppose Senate Bill 3334. In the wake of the Lahaina fires, the complex area superintendent was not just an administrator, but she was a vital lifeline. Principals, our schools, our students, and our families. The CAS acted as a link and a buffer between the many organizations, be it FEMA, MEMA, the EPA, private donors, the media involved in the recovery, as well as a critical connection between us and the crucial state support we needed. Removing the CAS position seems to be about the size and structure of the complex area system, but I believe that as it currently stands, it is perfectly designed to allow for local agility and responsiveness. And most importantly, it fosters close, trusting relationships between the CAS and the principals, which I believe was the most important factor for our schools responding at a time of crisis. The tri-level system was designed specifically to act in the way it did after the Lahaina fires, and for these reasons, I strongly oppose SB 3334. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We do have Alan Kumalai, who was on Zoom, but they're here in person, and Mrs. Kumalai would want to testify, so yes, please.
Aloha.
Can you identify yourself?
Yes. My name is Lynette Kumalai. I am a Kalihi Valley resident, and I'm also a volunteer at the Kaiwai Elementary School. My husband and I also serve in the SCC, School Committee Council. I am writing in strong support of SB 3334 and to share concerns about how school leadership is currently set up based on what I have seen in my beloved Kalihi district. The Department of Education has too many layers of bureaucracy, and the higher up decisions are made, the more disconnected leadership can feel from students and families. This has been clear in the way the CAS, overseeing schools in my district, operates. Oversight issues and administrative decisions often come from a narrow point of view, including placing people in leadership roles like principals who are friends instead of responding to a person who can best lead the school and has an understanding of the community, where the students reside, and who can relate to the students and faculty. Hiring the wrong person has led to retirements and loss of teachers and administrators. Repealing the CAS position could help by bringing accountability closer to the school level. Right now, the superintendent does not have a clue as to what the CAS is doing and is totally disconnected from what is going on in the schools. In my experience, principals are deferring many decisions to the CAS, who does not have a strong understanding of the students and families being affected.
I'm going to
which
have to
creates-
ask you to summarize if you can.
Oh,
Can you
sure.
summarize, please? Thank you.
Basically, coming from Kalihi, attending schools, Kalikai, Kalakaua, Farrington, I always felt a sense of belonging and pride. And it really saddens me when I talk to students who tell me they don't feel like they belong, or they don't feel, that their culture is being embraced. And so I feel like one of the most concerning effects is the disconnect. Okay. So I hope that, by support of this bill, that we can make it better for the kids and they want to come to school and feel good about themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me
Appreciate you
share.
being here. Thank you. Tim Hosoda.
Good afternoon, Chair,
Good
Vice
afternoon.
Chair, Senator. My name is Tim Hosoda, Principal, Pa'o Elementary School, and I'm testifying opposing this bill. I speak to you not only as a principal, but I also worked in the state office the past 2 years, from 2023 to 2025. And I can tell you from working in the state office, executive leadership is very busy, and they do not have the capacity to take on the role of 258 schools and all the daily demands that go with it. For an example, one of the situations that I recently had to deal with, I had to reach out to my CAS late on a Friday night. She was responsive. She followed up with me again on Monday. We have situations so vital to student success and student safety. In this particular case, the family is so thankful that our CAS responded so quickly that we were able to provide the support that it's maybe a little dramatic to say life-changing and life-saving, but this kid was on the verge of a collapse. And the supports we provided, they're so thankful that we were able to give the support that we did in a timely manner. And this is just one school of 258. And if we're going to save students' lives, I think the CAS position is something that's desperately needed, because we want to do what's best, not just for our students' education, but for their safety as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jennifer Ichiyama. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Ichiyama. I'm a principal at Aliolani Elementary. I stand by my written testimony in strong opposition of Senate Bill 3334, and instead engage principals, CAS, educators, and community stakeholders in a thoughtful dialogue to strengthen, not dismantle, effective leadership structures within the Hawaii Department of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Nagua. Followed by Sonia Samsonas. Aloha.
Aloha. Aloha, Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, members of the committee. My name is Bruce Nagua, and I strongly oppose Senate Bill 3334. As a former deputy superintendent for the Leeward District, I understand the complexities of dealing with 6 different complex areas and over 45 schools. In a current situation with the CASs, I think they have a better understanding, a better feel for each individual school. Each school has unique needs, and when you spread across the district, it's hard to really respond to everyone's unique needs. And so I really strongly oppose the elimination of the CAS position. I'm also opposed to allowing the SCC to have 50% say in the selection and evaluation of the principals. Again, my fear is that one or two individuals may have certain agendas, and I don't think that's a good way to select principals. So I strongly oppose Senate Bill 3334. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonia Samsonis.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Sonia Samsonis. I'm the proud principal of Ku'u'ula Elementary School, and I respectfully stand in opposition of Senate Bill 3334. These proposed changes would weaken the structure that supports school effectiveness and student success. Our CASs, they serve as a critical bridge between schools and the Department of Education. They help us and provide instructional leadership, operational oversight, compliance, guidance, and direct support to us, the principals. And eliminating CAS positions would remove an essential layer of system coherence and the shift significant responsibility to principals without increasing authority or capacity. Strong schools require lines of accountability, aligned leaderships, and professional expertise in personnel process. SB 3334 risks destabilizing those structures at a time when schools need stability and coherence. For these reasons, I respectfully urge you to oppose 3334.
Thank you. Leeward District Education Specialist. Nobody here for that? Okay. Those are all that actually signed up. I will ask if there's anyone wishing to testify, but we actually had, members, for your information, 11 in support, 131 opposed, and 1 comment. So with that, is there anyone here in this room wishing to testify on this measure? Please come forward, identify yourself.
Aloha.
Good to see you.
Chair and members, my name is John Hamilton, proud principal at Kalihi Elementary. On behalf of the Farrington Kaiser Kalani Complex, we stand proud on our written testimony in opposition of SB 3334.
Thanks,
Mahalo.
John. Okay, anyone else? Please come forward, identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Christopher Bonilla, principal of Holomua Elementary School in the Campbell-Kapolei Complex area. As the principal of Holomua Elementary School, I submit this testimony to express my firm opposition to SB 3334. Beyond the logistical and administrative concerns, I speak to you from the moral imperative of school leadership, the duty to protect equitable access to education and to ensure that school governance is rooted in professional integrity, void of any hidden agendas and past unresolved conflicts. School leadership does not exist in a vacuum. The CAS serves as more than a supervisor. They are a vital connective tissue that prevents our schools from becoming isolated into silos. For Holomua, this role is a matter of equity. As the sole remaining multi-track school in the DOE, Holomua has many multifaceted intricacies. The CAS provides a critical source of advocacy, navigating the complexities of our schedule while balancing the demands of future campus expansion through high-level coordination with state leadership and private entities. There is an ethical risk. Without the CAS, the burden of systematic advocacy falls solely on the schools. There is a consequence. We risk a fragmented system where schools are forced to compete for resources and influence, leading to leadership burnout, diminished morale, and a breakdown of communication necessary for student achievement.
Okay, I don't mean to interrupt, but can you summarize? Because your time is...
Moreover, I specifically oppose the expansion of the SCC authority. The CAS possesses the technical expertise and wheelhouse knowledge required to evaluate principals. By shifting this authority to the SEC, we invite a du jour of questionable initiatives that might be driven by personal opinion rather than educational best practices, what is best for students. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else, please?
Aloha, Senators.
My name is Adria Medeiros, born and raised in the Ke'aupahoa complex area, and I'm the proud principal and alumni of Mountain View Elementary School on the Big Island. I stand by my written testimony in strong opposition to SB 3334. As one of the few testifiers today traveling from a neighbor island, I want to emphasize how critical complex area superintendents are, especially for schools outside of Oahu. For those of us leading rural campuses, distance is not just a geographic issue. It affects access, responsiveness, and understanding of local realities. CAS leadership provides immediate, regionally grounded support when crises arise or complex operational decisions must be made. In fact, my CAS has been my mentor for 20 years throughout my entire career. That level of relationship, proximity, and contextual knowledge cannot be replicated through centralized leadership alone. Eliminating this structure of mentorship will not streamline our system. It will fragment it and weaken support, especially for rural and neighbor island schools. I respectfully urge the committee to oppose passage SB 3334. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Aloha, Chair Makarakim, Vice Chair Kidani, members of the board. My name is Neil Batat. I'm the principal of Maukalani Elementary School up in Makakilo, a school in the Campbell-Kapolei complex, as well as a community member in my area. I stand on written testimony as well as the submitted testimony, collective testimony of our 18 complex principals. Our complex area superintendent is intimately familiar with our 18 schools, the unique needs of our students and communities, and the complex challenges we face in our quest to ensure a quality education for all. This includes the fast and continued growth of the Campbell-Kapolei area. Our complex area superintendent is a direct line of support for our 18 principals and ensures our individual voices and concerns are heard and recognized by upper leadership. SB 3334, which removes the complex area superintendent, does more to harm principals and schools rather than support us. And Senator Kim, as you said, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. I just want to let you know I love my complex area superintendent.
Okay, well said, thank you. Anyone else?
Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, Senator DeCourt, and Senator Hashimoto. As principal of Evan Mackay, I'm Corey Barton, and part of the Campbell-Kapolei complex. We stand on our written testimony in opposition to this bill. To highlight this bill disrupts the essential leadership pipeline. It also risks politicizing the selection and decision-making of the principal, compromising the integrity of the principal. The CAS provides high-level coordination required to lead dynamic schools and the highest student population in Hawaii. The SEC currently has participation in the principal selection and does provide some evaluation of the principal already. We stand by to answer any questions we have regarding our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hey, good afternoon, Zachary Sheets, principal of Waipahu High School, and I'm representing Waipahu Complex. And we stand on our written testimony in opposition of Bill 3334. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, with that, we're going to go into questions, members, and I thank all of you for your patience, and I know it's been a long day for you guys as well. So we want to start with Department of Education. Is there a reason why the superintendent is not here? I know he's back from his trip.
I think he's in flight right now.
He's in flight?
Yes.
Okay. Heidi, why do you think we're here, and why do you think this bill has been introduced?
I would ask that you would tell me that. We didn't introduce this bill.
No, I know, but again, you know, we just don't introduce measures just because we dream it up or whatever. We get complaints, we get concerns, we've talked with the superintendent, we've talked with you folks on many occasions, and things don't change. And so a lot of times that's what happens, measures get put together because of that. And so So we're sitting here concerned and wondering, that if there's problems, obviously, in the system that we've made the superintendent aware of, Board of Education, and changes are not occurring. And then we see how the trips and costs and expenses, we're not getting reimbursements from Medicaid. There's a lot of issues that is going on with the DOE. And so, so again, what is the leadership of the DOE doing so that we're not faced with these kinds of measures?
Well, regarding complaints, and yes, Senator Kim, you do let the state office know when you get complaints. We do look into each complaint and address it appropriately. A complaint needs to be investigated often, or maybe or maybe not. There's another side to this story. Complaints sometimes are, or many times are legitimate, and we have to take appropriate action, and the department has procedures and processes if a practice, a policy, a law has been violated. Sometimes complaints are of personal interest or of personal wishes, and while that may be very important to the complainant, it's not something that would require a school to make a change. Somebody might have a passion for something the school is not doing, is or is not doing. That's handled in a different way. But I do ask that any of you do receive complaints, we do have a process that works to do the investigation and either to address the situation and either make the required changes because there is validity to the complaint, or share the reason why the situation will remain status quo.
Okay. It's not so much a specific complaint, but a structural complaints, process types complaints, the fact that DOE has put on 2 more deputies and the cost for that, and how does that actually go down to the schools and to the principals, and how does that empower them? There's a lot of concerns about that. And so, again, and as I told UH, we don't want to be here. I don't want to introduce this measure. I don't want to have to sit here and, I respect all of the principals and all of your point of views. And I've had calls from other principals who've said that they receive, emails, they receive a template asking them to testify, to send in testimony. Some of them felt intimidated by it. They fear retaliation from the CASs as well. And so these are concerns that come to us. And I've heard from my colleagues, which is why this measure introduced, about their particular situation with their particular CASs or structure that is going in their areas. So it's not just a one person kind of measure. Yes, my name's on the bill, but as the chair of the committee, that's my responsibility as far as representing what are some of the changes, and perhaps just the fact that the bill is introduced, that we might be able to get some changes. And, I know their testimonies have come based on what is in the bill, but it's a work in progress as to looking at, well, if not the CASs, then what, right? What's the replacement? And I think I would hope that that's some of the concerns that would raise here. Is there a better way of doing this? But I will open up to questions.
Yeah, so I'm noticing, Heidi, that your tune is changing a little bit, because when we bring issues to yourself or to the superintendent, we are met with excuses. So when I had brought to this committee in front of the superintendent the fact that kids are graduating with 4th grade reading level, graduating high school now with 4th grade reading level, when I bring to your attention that the absentee rate in my area is completely unacceptable, you meet me with saying it's a community issue. So you sound a little bit more like you're willing to collaborate and cooperate, where before you were more inclined to give us excuses and reasoning, asking me to give you the names of the kids, where this is a structural problem. This is not just a one kid situation. We've talked to you many times about the lack of SPED teachers in the classrooms and how they're changing the teachers on the students. The parents don't know, so the kid goes home and they respond negatively. They don't know why, so they come to the school and then they find out that the teacher has been switched. So I'm happy to see that the principals are willing to come out, and thank you all very much for coming out. I think that if your department was more able to rally up the principals on other very positive bills, like the student-authored book. If you were to let the principals know on how maybe that might be an option for our students, then maybe that's something that they could also participate in. But right now, it doesn't seem as though we're getting the answers that we need. So seeing the overwhelming support to stand behind the CASs, then maybe it's not the CASs that's the problem, maybe it's you. Maybe you're the problem. Because the buck kind of stops with you, right?
Many things do stop with me, yes. But thank you for sharing your opinion. I do ask that when to address your concerns about, you shared about students who had particular situations, it is very helpful when we do get, because then we can follow up on a situation or situations. The blanket statements don't help us. Chronic absenteeism is a definite problem. Research came out as early as this week that just confirms in communities that have high homeless populations, it's nationwide, it is a significant problem. And I do believe the state works and the department works very hard in providing many supports to help families who struggle to get their children to school or who have barriers that prevent them from getting to school. And so we continue to deploy those. We can't make the problems go away, but we can ensure that we're doing everything within our means to assist with any barriers that might be preventing students from coming to school.
Yeah, I think I would just like to see more of a strategic plan instead of Band-Aid fixes from you folks. And these are conversations we've had over and over again. I've had them with Keith, I've had them with you. We've had them on this education committee, so this is nothing new. We continue to have this conversation, and yet we have no strategic plan.
We do have a state strategic plan. I don't believe I've had a conversation with you on these issues, but I'm more than happy to meet with you to hear your concerns.
I've had these conversations with Keith, and if it hasn't gotten to you and it hasn't translated into results, again, the changes start from the top. And so maybe we need to go above the CASs. Maybe it's you, maybe it's Keith, but we have to continue to start trimming off the edges and finding out really where the root cause of where things are coming to a stop. So are they at the CASs, or are they at you, or are they at the superintendent? Or maybe it's the Board of Education. Where would you say?
Well, I'm more than happy to meet with you to hear what the concerns are so that we can address those.
Well, I think I've already stated my concerns.
Right, but details do help in really solving the problem.
Okay,
And
so I'm going to
more than
ask you the
happy to
same
talk
question
about
that I
with
asked your
you.
superintendent. Do you find it to be acceptable that 12th graders are graduating high school with a 3rd and 4th grade reading level?
No.
Okay, so what is your plan to fix that?
Again, can we meet and can you share? I need to know, what is the background? Is the student on a diploma track? Was the student on a certificate track?
It's
Was
not just
the
one student. We're talking about.
Right, and when we have more details, we will absolutely look into that situation. No, do I want that happening? No. Does the department want that happening? No.
Okay, so if you had a proper communication with your CASs, who obviously are in close communication with your principals, then you would know where in the problem lies.
We will continue to keep in close communication with the CASs. I try very hard to keep in close communication, and I will continue to bring your concerns to our conversations so that I can help address any barriers that might be preventing the department from doing what we need to do to support all children.
Okay, I'll go ahead and have a follow-up question after. Thank you.
Senator Hashimoto.
Board of Education.
Heidi, why don't you sit there, because I have questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Arkaki, for being here.
Thank you.
I'm reading the board's testimony, and it's a little bit confusing. It says the board defers to the Department of Education on more specific impacts of eliminating the position of a complex area superintendent. So you guys are against, or are you just punting to the DOE?
Yeah, that's very interesting because, as a board member, when we do testify on bills, according to our policies, we do make testimony regarding any policy changes. And according to this bill, it's about, the complex area superintendents, their positions, and of course, the SEC, as far as their authority to make recommendations for the principals. So that is an operational maintenance kind of thing that what the DOE does. So that's why we haven't made or did a testimonies in opposition of the bill. But as a former Department of Education employee, teacher, coach, vice principal, principal, complex area superintendent, I really believe that not having complex area superintendents will really be detrimental to our system.
Got it. So I guess the question is, so I thought the board approves all the CASs.
I believe it does come, because we just had Mr. the former principal Campbell from Campbell was yesterday at a board meeting, was approved by the board. So yeah, it goes through the board process. Yes.
Right. So then for the board to not be taking official position, I find that a little odd.
Yeah.
Right. And partially, I think isn't it the board's responsibility to look at strategy, right, on how the system is designed, right? Yes. That's what you're holding the superintendent to, I assume, with your employment contract matrix, right? And so I think I would have liked to see a little bit more hands-on of what the board's position is going to be on these type of issues. And maybe, this is a signal that it's time for the board to really take a look at what is the structure of the DOE, right? In terms of, is it working? Is it not? Is there something that we need to change? Obviously you guys allowed for the additional deputies to be hired, right? But without absent of any other structural changes, it does make me a little bit concerned that you're not taking a deep dive and you're just allowing Band-Aids to happen. So I'm just concerned that, that the board needs to be aware and be present of these type of conversations, because at the end, you're getting appointed by the governor. We approve you, right, to be on that board to make these kind of decisions so that the legislature doesn't have to come and get into your business. But absent of the type of analysis and strategy, sometimes we have to do that. And so that's, I think, what's concerning to a lot of us here, right?
Yeah, that is a great point. And when Senator DeCourt talked about, graduation, students are at the fourth grade level for reading, and how can they graduate, and get a diploma and things. It's interesting because at our board meeting on Thursday, we did have presentations on the CSLD grant for literacy. And one of the big things, we had testimony as far as how do we support, because we do have great data nationally as far as how our students are doing on SBAC testing and so on, but how do we support the students that are special needs, come from different ethnic groups and so on? So in our strategic plan, which we have a strategic plan, Deputy Armstrong mentioned it, there is a portion where we want all students, no matter what, where they come from, that they're able to succeed. So, and we talked about
and
this.
I get it. And I think what needs to be clear to the legislature, especially when these kind of bills come up, what is the board thinking, right? Because I think it's not only how big is the upper administration of the DOE. There are particular areas that we're trying to have the board fix. One of them is facilities, which you guys then approved another assistant, right, to take away portions of the OWIS and OFO to another assistant, which was fine, but then we need to see some type of progress, right? And so I think, hopefully you guys are keeping an eye. And so when I see these kind of testimonies where it seems like, we don't care, ask the DOE, I get really concerned.
We do care. And Senator, we are looking at the specific subgroups as far as what they're doing, as far as their literacy standards and so what's happening as far as the assessment.
No, I
So
get
we
it.
wanna
That's
make
her
sure.
question. I'm talking about my
but
question.
And yours as far as facilities and so on, because we do have
Right.
the FIC and the HR chair that we are
Well,
doing.
hopefully you can take this message back to the board, right? I
definitely,
think
yes.
part of it is what is the strategy of the DOE admin, right? I think if we understood it, I think we would have a little bit more comfort. But I think the message here is we're a little bit uncomfortable where we're heading, right? I think it's not sometimes the answer is not adding, right? I think the problem a lot of times is we just don't have people in the vacant positions. Right, and I think that the board really needs to focus on those type of things to make sure that we have a system that is robust and we're focusing on the right areas. So hopefully you really understood what the conversation is here today.
And definitely, I will go back to our board members and Chair Takumi as far as what was talked about. We can view the what happened at the meeting today. So definitely,
All right,
yes.
thank you, Chair.
Senator Kidani.
Thank you. Heidi, how many CASs do we have?
15.
15?
15.
And how many principals do those CASs oversee?
It depends. So some complex areas oversee 9 schools, and say KKP, because it's a very geographically diverse area. Urban Honolulu can be 29 schools. So there's a range. Each CAS doesn't have the same number of schools.
I see. Thank you.
I want to follow up on the literacy. You said that you folks want students to succeed. And that's all of our goal. We all want our students to succeed. I think part of it is what kind of programs are we actually instituting into the schools and having these students, because there's a lot of students, they just can't sit into a classroom completely and then take the test, and so they don't come to school. A lot of absenteeism. And when we do have creative programs in the schools, and we have a CAS that stops the program from continuing on, even though it occurred for 9 years and never said a word about it, and then all of a sudden raise these levels, and then says that there's a policy against it, a state policy, and when I asked for the policy and checked for the policy, there is no such policy, but those kinds of statements are being made. And then we propose things to help get the students interested, get them excited, give them confidence, and then the DOE goes against it. You know, they can't support it. So these are the kinds of concerns. So I hope that the board will be looking at this, because you cannot just say we want our students to succeed. We do, but how do they succeed? There's no longer you can stand in front of the classroom 1 to 25 students or 30 students. You know, you have to engage the students. It's a different kind of learning. You know, I learned with the teacher in front of the classroom, obviously, and I learned to, memorize my multiplications and all of that. It's a different kind of students now. I know all the principals here probably know that. But how are we delivering education to keep them engaged, to keep them, project oriented and so forth? And those are the kinds of things we're looking for, leadership from the leadership, the CASs, and so forth. And you oversee the CASs,
Yes.
right? How
Yes.
often do you meet with the CASs?
Often. I talk to CASs every day. I meet with CASs on a regular schedule twice a month. We have our leadership meetings. And then in between those, I work with our struggling schools. So I see other CASs and their principals once every month.
So do you bring up these concerns that you're raising?
We do. We look at the successes, we look at the struggles. I'll give you just an example. I completely agree that the traditional learning, we do lose many kids. They can't, there's too many distractions. And so in your district, in Honolulu District, to support math, they've done the thinking classrooms where they have the whiteboards or the white papers. So math, we're having a concerted effort. We do know we need to improve in math. And this strategy that all of the schools have been trained in, they've been supported, they've had professional development, they've had follow-up, allows the children in the math class elementary through high school, to work in groups and to talk and to figure out the problem, to ask questions. So I can say that the schools are acknowledging your statement that traditional learning is traditional. And we do have, that's just one of many examples. And I know any CAS or myself or the superintendent we're more than happy to take you into schools to show you variations.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
aware.
Okay.
Again, not every, there's not that the schools aren't doing it. I know there are pockets and there are different schools and the way they're being run, and some schools have a lot of programs, good programs. So happen in some of my schools in Kalihi, they're not don't have that, and when they do have a program, then it gets cut with no reason why it gets cut after 9 years, which is concerning. Raise that concern. The students, the community is the one that came to me because they're concerned. I wasn't aware of it. They brought it to the neighborhood board. That's how bad it got to the neighborhood board. And, and these are students that was working out with a curriculum outside and it was cut. So again, this is one example, but I've heard many examples, and other schools have done exactly the same thing that the school was doing, and then it gets cut. So again, and the concerns raised with the CAS, and in another school, again, raised with the CAS, and principals are not going to speak against the CAS. They just are not. They will tell me, but they're not going to come out. So, we get to be the messengers here. So, I hope that as you meet with them, should this thing go forward, continue, that, you raise these issues and evaluations and what's going on in certain areas. Because again, it's not every CAS, it's not every area. But again, when there's several, then it ruins it all for everyone, right? Because there's a lot of concerns. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to also mention that, as a board member, for me to be visible at the schools is very important. And I'm very grateful for the CASs. There's many CASs that are here that have invited me to go to the complex, not only on Kauai, Oahu, and other places, to visit schools and to do what we call it walkthroughs to see, because we have a systematic approach as far as curriculum, strategies, and so on. For example, the CSLD, there's levers as far as what is important. It's not only about instruction, curriculum, but it's about family engagement and so on. So as a board member, when we hear presentations from the DOE and presentations from the schools, which they did, with the state and also with the specific complex and a specific school, I'll go out and say, okay, you talked about this, and when I visibly see, hear, and when you ask the students, because as a former teacher, so what are you learning? What's happening and so on. So I think it's important for board members, because as a board member, when you want us to make changes or be accountable to what's happening out within our system, that you got to see what's happening.
I would
and you
hope
gotta know
so. I
to
would
do
hope that
Yes.
every one of the board members have visited at some point as many schools as possible, especially within the area.
I know some are full-time workers. Me, I'm retired and I got to babysit. But yeah, definitely being able to be out there and having this invitation by the principal and CAS is terrific.
We ask all board members during the confirmation, do you have the time? Are you willing to serve? Do you have the time to do this? And you all say yes, whether you're retired or not. And so if you're not visiting the schools, if you're not coming into contact with them, then I have some concerns. And, we asked this during your confirmation, and we will ask you again as we go forward if you come up for a reconfirmation.
Yeah, because we have the sunshine law too, that now we cannot have more than how many board members?
Yeah, but you
doing
can go individually. I go to my schools individually.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can call. I reach out to the principals or try to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Right.
those can.
Okay, any further questions on that? Senator DeCourt, any further last minute questions? I know you had to go to vote on a number of issues.
I apologize.
I know you said you might want to follow up.
Yes. Heidi, in your advocacy for these positions, how can we expect to get a better line of communication with you in your office and with the superintendent that would actually give us a pathway to getting the results we need for the schools that are being underserved right now.
I'm more than willing, and I speak for the superintendent as well, he or I are more than willing to come to your area, go to the schools with you, talk about your concerns and your needs, and come up with what needs to be done to see the improvements that you're suggesting, we need to be aware of.
So you're willing to come back to our schools to look again at the issues that we're having?
I don't believe I've walked through schools with you, but I'm more than willing to. I do go to
Not
some
with
of your
me
schools
personally,
regularly.
but yes, not with me personally,
Yes.
but with the principals and with the head custodians as well. So you've been there before, but would it make you feel better if you walked there with me? And then we were able to kind of go through a checklist of
That's
all
what
the
you prefer?
issues?
Sure.
I would just prefer the work to get done. So if that
Likewise,
is what
yes.
it's gonna take for the work to get done, I think that would be good. And not to pivot into a conversation that might potentially add more positions to already a top-heavy department, but do you feel like you can handle your position? You seem very overwhelmed.
I hope I don't look overwhelmed, but if I do, I can't help that. But
Sure.
I'm very busy, but I wouldn't say I would say to you I'm overwhelmed.
Sure, and the reason that I make that comment is because in the state auditor's audit findings, when it came to the driver's license program, you seem to not know the basic knowledge of how the program is being run, or that it's a multi-department program. So again, the very basics, I think that should be pretty much known.
I do agree, and that audit I was assistant superintendent in the first month of the job, and I had not yet met with our driver's education section, but I did within the first 2 months meet with every group. So not an excuse, but to help clarify your thinking.
Yeah, so since the audit has come up, have you made those efforts?
Oh, yes, we have. And out of I think it was 10 recommendations of the audit, we've completed 8. One is a administrative rule, but we're following the process. And off the top of my head, I can't remember the other one, but it was on target for completion. Yes.
Yeah. Also, there are some loopholes a little bit with how the deferred maintenance is getting handled in some of these areas. And so a lot of the funds are being moved. I believe you were here when we were sitting with the University of Hawaii, and we were talking about just that lack of communication that the legislature is not getting when funds are moved for different CIP or deferred maintenance, things like that. So have you been able to, or maybe you can help us to streamline that? Because the parents in my community, the coaches, they're feeling like a lot of these areas are being neglected. And I honestly, I don't know how the Department of Health isn't shutting down some of these programs. So these are areas that you have walked through the schools. Keith has walked through the schools. You've done this with the custodians. So I guess for the sake of the conversation, should we do them again? Maybe extra oversight of me being there and watching the conversations take place? Maybe that would be better accountability.
Well, I'm happy to meet with you and have one-on-one or 3 or whoever wants to attend the meeting to hear the specific concerns. And then I do think we're accountable to follow up if it's something that can be done immediately. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kidani, any more last questions?
No, I forgot to remember.
Sorry, I know I talk so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to
Thanks,
thank all of
guys.
you folks for being here today. I know
Thank
you had to
you.
take time out of your busy schedule away from the kids, so thank you all for your testimony and for being here. We are moving on to the next item, which is Senate Bill 3063. This is relating to Department of Education procurement. Authorize Department of Education to expend up to 5% more
Oh, everybody should stay for the next bill.
They're only here for one bill.
They're
Can you
only
shut
here
the
for one
door?
bill?
Can you keep the door shut so we can? Can we shut the door? Thank you. Okay, this authorizes the Department of Education to expend up to 5% more to procure local edible produce and packaged food products compared to non-local alternatives. And here to testify, patiently waiting, we have our Attorney General. Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon, Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, Senator DeCourt, and Horigi from the Department of the Attorney General. As noted in our testimony, the bill refers to or uses terminology of non-local alternatives, but there is currently no definition for that term in statute. So we suggest revising the bill to include references that basically incorporate the definitions that are used in HRS section 27-8, and that language is in our testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Keith Hayashi, Department of Education.
Chair Kim, Vice Chair Kidani, Senator DeCourt, Sean Tajima testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. We're currently working with big distributors instead of having smaller direct contracts, which makes it challenging for us to purchase more local products. So with the regional kitchen model launching in 2027, we plan to have more contracts directly with producers. So this measure will help us greatly in being able to purchase more local products. We stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Kahakui.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Bonnie Kahakui, Administrator, State Procurement Office, will stand by your written testimony, providing comments.
Thank you very much. And we've had 4 others testifying in support. Anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, hearing none. Sean, can you come back up? Question. So we've had this conversation before on other measures, how you have a master vendor who then goes out and buys food from different entities. And I've been told that a lot of local vendors, because their cost is slightly higher, that the master vendor just don't buy from them. And they've been trying for years, some of our local vendors who've been in the business for a long time, and they still can't get their goods into our schools. So how do we resolve this? Is this gonna resolve that?
This will definitely help. And one thing that we're doing, regardless of this bill for next year, is we're gonna list, I'll give you an example of like cucumber. So right now, it's not really in the best interest of the distributor to purchase the local cucumber because it's more expensive for them, whereas we have a set price for the cucumber. So what we're planning to do for next year is have the same item listed for the local price and the non-local price so that we can choose to purchase the local one if we choose to.
Okay, so that's gonna be across the board? To do
Yes.
that for all the small vendors, the small local vendors that we wanna?
So it won't be vendor specific, but it'll have the item with 2 different prices for a local price and then a non-local price. That way it'll be our decision to purchase a local item.
And it says here, expend up to 5% more. 5%, that's not a lot, right?
It isn't, but it'll help.
Yeah, but if it isn't, how is it gonna help that one vendor if it isn't, right? I mean, so are we being realistic? Is the cost for our local farmers and local vendors, the difference from the mainland stuff, only 5% difference?
So there's 2 parts to this. One is we can spend up to 250,000, or if it's 5%, we can do more than that. So, but like you said, 5% will help, but it won't help in every item though.
Okay, any other questions, members?
Yeah, where is the department at with their 30% locally sourced food?
Currently, so over the past few years, we've been at about 6%, and then we're down to 5%, we're back up to 6%. Currently, we're at 8%.
where do you project the department landing in the year 2030?
We're striving to get to 30% by 2030. We're actually at 8% right now, which is not close to 30, but it is the highest we've been. We would have been higher, but unfortunately there was a drought that affected local beefs and some other local products weren't available to us.
But I know that there's been efforts with ulu, those kinds of things. Where are you folks at with that?
So we piloted with several products, local beef, sweet potato, bok choy, and kabocha. Unfortunately with that, again, a lot of it was the availability of the products. So some of those weren't readily available to us, but we're continuing to try to pilot with different products. So we have one going out right now. We're working on poi right now, and our next target is local cucumber.
So is it the funding that's not available, or it's the products are you guys short in funding, or are you guys short in product?
Yeah, it's not a funding issue. It's more of a product issue. So I think with the big project of the regional kitchen, and it's a multi-agency effort to build up local agriculture to be able to support the regional kitchen. I think we're looking at the launch of the regional kitchen model to produce a spike in locally sourced products.
Okay, thank you. I'm hoping that we can support these measures that will continue to keep the food locally grown here and purchased here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not, thank you, Sean. Okay, we are on the last item for this agenda, because we do have another one after this, a joint. Senate Bill 2615. This is cafeteria meals, relating school cafeteria meals cost requires Department of Education to charge not less than 1/4 of the cost of preparing school meals for each school meal. And we have Department of Education. Sean, that's you.
Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Decourt, Sean Tajima. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. Lowering the statutory cost recovery requirement from 50% to 25% will allow us not to mandate a price increase for families. Currently, student payments are at 28% of meal production costs, which would be in compliance should this measure be adopted. Stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else signed up for testified. We did have two others in support. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, hearing none, members, any questions? Senator Decourt.
Sean, thanks. How much is the meals costing right now? And then how much of that, so three questions. How much is it costing per meal? And then how much is the overall funding, and how much of that are you guys getting federal funding for?
So cost per meal is $905. I'm sorry, what was your other question?
And then how much is the entire, all of the meals, all of the food?
Cost of food?
Yeah.
It's total cost of meals.
Approximate is fine. And then my next question was, how much of that are you guys getting federal funding for? Okay.
So total cost of the meals, 179 million. So that includes the food and labor and equipment. And then federal reimbursements?
Yeah, any idea?
Yeah. About 60%.
Okay, and then one question, Chair, or comment. Some of the parents in my school, primarily the elementary schools, are complaining that they're not able to eat meals with their with their children, especially the kindergarteners, the ones that are maybe going to school for the first time. Parents are concerned that maybe they're not eating all their food, or maybe they're having trouble opening the milk carton. And parents in my district were told that they're not able to sit in the cafeteria with their child because of federal funding. Is that?
I don't think that has to do anything with federal funding.
Okay.
I think that's more of an operational issue.
What would that issue be? Because, I mean, when my kids were going to school, I was still able to have breakfast with them, spend that time with them, walk them to their classroom. So I think maybe for the preliminary grades, such as like kindergarten or going to school for the first time, I think that parental support would be helpful to the student. So operational costs is for, operational purposes is for what reason?
I think it's just for management of the cafeteria, but I'll take that concern back though.
Yeah, I would like to know because this is what our parent was told, and because of that, the child really struggled her first year in school, and so since then, the parent has pulled him out of public school and now is homeschooling just because it was too much of a culture shock without any real transition to, especially it was her first year
Kindergarten.
of kindergarten. Yeah, and so they weren't sure if they were eating, those kinds of things. So if it's not a federal regulation, then I need to know that too, because I have to go and talk to the principal about that.
I don't believe it affects our federal reimbursement for that.
Thank you.
Maybe if you can let me know offline which school and we can follow up.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. If there are no other measures, we are going to recess. Call the Committee on Education back to order. We are in decision-making, starting out with Senate Bill 2602, relating to the general fund of the University of Hawaii tuition special fees. The recommendation is to pass with amendments, technical and non-substantive amendments for clarity and consistency. Any discussion? Hearing none. Chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye.
2602, SD1.
Vice Chair votes aye. Fukunaga excused. Senator Hashimoto excused. Decor.
Aye.
Measures adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 2658. This is requires the Board of Regents to expend funds to appropriate new and improved modernization facilities. And the recommendation is to amend with the AG statement. The bill is of statewide concern. I think that's the extent of the amendments. So pass with amendments, Senate Bill 2658. Chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decor.
Aye.
Measures adopted.
Okay, Senate Bill 3229 relating to the University of Hawaii. It authorizes the use of the tuition and special fees to conduct donor evaluations. Recommendation is to pass with technical and non-substantive amendments. Any discussion? Hearing none. Chair votes aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Fukunaga and Hashimoto excused. Senator Decor.
Aye.
Measures adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 2659 relating to the Board of Regents, prohibits active employees of the University of Hawaii and RCUH from serving on the Board of Regents. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Hearing none. Chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decor.
Aye.
Measures adopted, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senate Bill 3325 relating to public school Medicaid reimbursements, require Department of Education to establish an updated plan for maximizing the Medicaid reimbursements. Recommendation to pass with amendments. Technical, non-substantive. Also on page 4, line 3, reference to a special education section which does not exist within DOE. The correct reference may be the exceptional support branch of the Office of Student Support Services, or the correct name. Any discussion, members? Hearing none. Chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decor.
Aye.
Measures adopted, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Relating to Senate Bill 3232, relating to universal school meals, establishing the universal school meals special fund to accept deposits of Medicaid reimbursements received by the Department of Education. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decor.
Aye.
Measures adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 2551, recommendation is to defer, since this measure is the exact same as the next one coming up. Senate Bill 2875, relating to Education requires the Hawaii Teacher Standard Board to develop an alternative pathway for visiting international educator permit aligned with the duration of the educator's J1 visa program. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Hearing none, chair votes aye.
For 2875, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decort.
Aye.
Motion is adopted. Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. In Senate Bill 3334, the recommendation, this is relating to the repeal of the complex area superintendent position. The recommendation is to pass with amendments. There are a number of amendments streamlining the layer of administration to state superintendent, district superintendent, school administration that provides more empowerment to the principals to personalize efforts for their school, principals to report to district superintendents, academy, and district deputy superintendent. Each district will have one superintendent and one district deputy superintendent. Other staff positions can be established. And there's a number members of recommendations. The recommendation is that we're going to pass this on to Ways and Means, and they will hold a public hearing so that the public can all testify to some of the changes that is being recommended into this SD1. Also, technical and non-substantive amendments for clarity and consistency. Any discussion? Hearing none, chair votes aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decort.
Aye.
Motion is adopted, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senate Bill 2549 relating to student transportation authorizes Department of Education to hire a new contractor if a contractor under a student transportation contract fails to provide service on a contracted route for 5 or more consecutive instructional days. Recommendation is to pass with amendments. Senator Hashimoto has proposed amendments and add in the new section by the AG. Any discussion? Hearing none, also technical and non-substantive amendments. No discussion, chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decort.
Aye.
Motion is adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 3063, this is Department of Education procurement. Recommendation is to take the AG's amendment. Yeah, that's it. SD1, the AG amendments, chair votes aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decort.
Aye.
Motion is adopted, Madam
And
Chair.
finally, Senate Bill 2615 relating to school cafeteria meal costs requires the Department of Education to charge not less than 1/4 of the cost of preparing a school meal. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Hearing none, chair votes aye.
This was
Senate Bill 2615, SD1.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Decort.
Aye.
Motion is adopted, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. Members, we have one more, but we got to go down to room 016 for the next agenda, So we are adjourned.